welcome back to the Basil Breen Boombox. I'm here with Eiméid. Is it Eiméid?
Yeah.
Well, look, I wanted to try. I did look up pronunciations online. I play little audios. I had Eiméid, as in E-M and then E-E-D.
I'd say that's acceptable.
As a phonetic kind of way of doing it. My name for him, which is the Inner City Flow Lad.
Oh,
now, that's a throwback to one of his great poetic videos that he's put out recently, which we will get into. I'm kind of say Emma, I'm sorry. Because I have to keep doing it, I'm going to make a show myself.
You're trying it though, you're trying it.
I know. So basically, I actually met you the first time I went to the Smithfield Creatives, actually.
Yes.
And you were very, very kind the first time I met you. I just, like, you were just like, oh, do you have a website? You have this? And I was like, oh, well, I've never had such a positive response. And that always kind of stuck with. This before I even knew who you. I just thought you were some lad. I didn't even know you were a poet. I thought you were just some lad on just in the pub or whatever. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh shit, this lad's legit. And which made me feel a lot better even. But I want to kind of start in a weird place because I've been taking notes for a while and I don't know if this is going to bear any fruit, but I've just written down Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, yeah.
And because I've seen some stories, because I used to be a big Yu-Gi-Oh! Guy, let's say, back in the day with the cards and the series. So what was Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, I'm guessing that was when you were growing up, or you still master the cards now?
No. So when I was younger, I used to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! But when I was about 19, me and one of my best friends just sat in the house for a week straight, binged 50 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh.
And then we were like, we'll play. So there's a couple of cards that are floating around, but it's just more, when I was a kid, I watched it a bit, but I wasn't mad into it.
Yes.
Then when I got to about 18, 19, was like
Interesting.
locked in. Yeah, we had the curtains pulled.
Did you finish it? Like, did you see what happened with Yugi and his man? Like, his inner guy?
No, so we watched I watched up until Yugi and Pegasus Duel. And then they're in a tower and a ghost comes out.
Do you know what? All right, because it's on Netflix now. I went back to this because I seen what you were posting. This was ages ago. It was just an odd little post, something to do with Yu-Gi-Oh! I was like, I wonder if he's watched it or whatever. But I went back then because it triggered it just to see what it was like. But the episodes are so slow.
Yeah.
As in, a move happens and it's like, he's going to use his black magic darting. If he uses that, blah, blah. And it's showing all the characters' perspectives.
Yeah.
But nothing ever happens.
No.
It's literally, if you took the game, right, the whole game that takes place over 5 episodes, there's literally like 5 or 6 moves.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Every episode there was a duel and you knew that Yugi was going to win. And he was just sitting there like, how's he going to win? Time Wizard or something came out.
Time Wizard! But it was so disappointing because I went back, I was like, how was I was engrossed in, I remember the Battle Tower, I think, where they had the Egyptian gods and stuff. I actually had so I don't know if they were real. I had the Tormentor, Obelisk the Tormentor, I think was one of them, and then another guy had this one called Skylar, the Sky Dragon, right, I believe. Now, shout out to all my Yu-Gi-Oh! Fanboys. People are tuning out now. But I remember hustling this little kid on the yard. I had like a fake card that had 3,000 or 30,000 defense points, right?
Oh, nice, yeah.
And I used this card called Castle and something. It switched the attack.
Castle and Swords.
Yeah. So it switched the attack with the defense, and so I finished it in like 2 moves. But he was geared up for this cool battle in the yard. He was like
Probably had to do
I was in
this.
6th class. Yeah, you know what I mean. I was a few years ahead of him. So anyway, I'm sorry. Actually, I forget. I don't know who you are, but if you're listening to this now, some way, I'm sorry. I hustled you. But anyway, so I just wanted to use that to air my dirty laundry. See, this is the part. Like, actually, my primary school teacher got in touch with me because I had a few kind words to say about her in my last podcast with Jill, and it was so surreal that she had reached out and like 20 years later, because I was a little bastard and she was brilliant to me and our class, and I'm hoping to have a cup of coffee with her soon. But we won't dwell too much on my stuff, right? Because I'm derailing myself here.
Just keep going.
I want to get in to the Eiméid. I'm just going to say it one more time.
Say Eiméid, you're all good.
I'm sorry. Because I remember in the last podcast you did on This Dublin Live that kind of came up. It's like they thought you changed your name back or something.
Yeah, that was just it was something.
So
to do.
actually, let's just start there. What the impetus then? Because I know I had a friend in a similar situation where he was Paddy, he wanted to be Porrig then, as he sort of. I think there's like a sort of pride in like Irish culture, language that kind of. I don't know. So when I was younger, it wasn't really there. As I get older, I feel it more, stronger pull. Although I haven't been pulled into the language. So what was your thinking there in Irishing up your name?
Yeah, like I mean, when I was younger, I always had an appreciation for Irish culture. I'm very dubbed myself, like, you know what I mean? And I always took great pride in that. But I never really got into the sort of languages, and I just never applied myself. I should have applied myself. So when I got older, I think when I started getting into Irish, I was looking at poets like John Cummins and stuff that were speaking in Irish while doing poetry, and I said, I want to get into this. So then started to just learn a couple of words, it snowballed in. I think the reason why I prefer my name to be said in Irish, although I don't get bothered by it.
No, you don't get bothered, yeah.
Yeah, nah, it doesn't really bother me, but I think it's just a preference just because I'm Irish through and through, and I just think, why not? And I think it is dying out. I think the love for the language is dying out. Like, I'm trying to learn, I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near fluent, but I'm trying. But like, I think if we lose our culture almost.
The language even, because languages die all the time. Like, we think animals are the only entity that can go to extinction, but languages, cultures will die out over time. And the Irish language, I'm sure there's, like, I've only heard little, like, you know your man Hector from, he does a podcast with Tommy Tiernan and Loretta.
I do know this.
He does a bit of so I used to listen to that podcast, but every now and again he'd come out with these great Irish words. Because some languages, especially in German, that say, not that I'm a fucking linguist or anything, but this is all just learning from other things. There's words that encapsulate more than, like, what, like, it takes about 5 words in English to encapsulate, let's say, one word or whatever. Or language look, like, let's say, feminine and masculine languages, it's a way of looking at the world that's a little bit different, let's say.
Exactly,
and I've never gotten so deep with Irish to see. So for you, even without any sort of modern interest in the Irish language, like, what are the differences between Irish and English? Like, would you know that much, or just you know a few little jingles?
Yeah, I'd more so just know, like, mannerisms, a little bit how to talk. I have a big interest in Irish culture, but it wouldn't necessarily be with Irish language. Do you know what I mean? It would be to do with what I would consider to be, like, traditional Irish values almost in society that I think we're losing, and I think we're losing big time. Do you know what I mean? Even the like of our folk tales and stuff from beforehand I talked about as much, like the salmon and knowledge, the banshees, all these little things, you know, we don't really discuss it too much, up to the point of, like, even the idea of a trad session just sporadically happening in a pub. That is Irish culture to me. That doesn't happen that much anymore, you know. And so the language is just like a little part of it for me.
It's just a part of the whole ecosystem of Irish culture in a way.
Exactly.
You can just take a little sprinkle of that here and there. And I think what you're touching on there, it's the modernity of the world, let's say, or the fact that we have all this technology that's kind of, you know, in the pubs, let's say. We used to. Did you watch the Banshee of Inisherin?
No, I haven't watched the movie.
Man, you need to watch that.
I want to see the play first.
There's a play.
Yeah, I think it was originally a play.
Oh, your man's fucking brilliant.
There's 3 of them. There's the Cribble of Inishman, Lieutenant of Inishmore, and the Banshee of Inisherin, and it's a trilogy. And I'm waiting to see.
You're like a Puritan, you know what I mean?
Oh man, I'm a theatre fan.
No, that's what I mean.
I love it. Yeah.
Anyway, but. Because it's based on, like, an island. Inisherin is the island, I think, but it's a fictional Irish island. But I think it's off. I don't know what island, right? But anyway, the point is that they're secluded, and all there's these little pubs, and there's one pub, let's say, and they've nothing really else to do but sort of gravitate to the pub and just do simple chit chat or play a few songs. And that would have been, I mean, if that's all you had to do. Like, you'd be like, oh, let's do that more.
But that's so gone then. The concept of that is gone.
The concept of like,
can't go into a bar and just chat away. There's sometimes I'll go into a bar, like when I was living in Ballybuck, I used to love it because it was like that. You could go in and you talk to the barman. But, like, say you go into Dublin City Centre, or even the outskirts of Dublin City Centre, you're going in and the idea of just sitting down and talking to the person next to you is gone.
Yes.
Like, and even that happens in so many other ways. Like, I always use the example of, I remember being younger and you had to, remember when Dublin Bus didn't have the times. right? It didn't have the real time.
Yes.
So you're sitting there and you have no idea when the bus is going to come.
Praying to the bus
You
gods.
just turn around to someone and be like, the weather today. And that's gone now. Like, I notice if I'm out and about, like, I'll talk to people, no bother. I won't be in your face, but I will talk. And you're always kind of seeing people, like, they'll be on your phone, you say something, they're like, kind of guarding their phone a little bit. Now, it's not personal to me. I think it's just the times I live in them, but I miss it.
It's because we can take refuge in the phone, let's say, and it's the fact that we haven't. I think so. Even you might think I'm super extrovert, but I have times where not with podcasts or anything, but let's say if I'm getting my hair cut, I used to have kind of anxiety about sitting in the chair and having to talk or something for too long. And with my sister from her generation, even ringing up to sort out something like order a chipper or whatever, because they haven't been exposed to having to communicate with people, even getting the door, or just even in the shop now.
Who knocks on your door anymore?
Only my uncles who are in their 60s now. Yeah. They'll knock around randomly. No one does that. Or no one rings randomly anymore.
When I moved back to Ballybock, I was living in my grandparents' house, and they were like, it was such a breath of fresh air, because I remember, like, you go out the front garden, I'd be having a smoke or something, or one or two of my grandparents' friends would walk by and they just stop. And next of all, you're 15 minutes chatting away, you probably got a can from the fridge, you know, it was the summer, so the sun's beating down, and like, it's mad, because I was sitting there saying I'm a man at 23, 24, talking to someone who's about 60, 70. You kind of question what would you have in common for 25 minutes to talk about, but you lose yourself in this conversation, and it's really refreshing to know that, you know, because I would deal a lot with kind of not social anxiety, but just anxiety in general. And a couple of people have said to me that they think I'm kind of standoffish in a sense, or maybe that I look down on people because they see me on a stage and they see how brash I would be on a stage, and then I come off. And then I'm talking to someone, and I might like have the head down, or I might like say,
you're not as engaged.
Yeah. And then when they get to know me, they're like, oh yeah, but I was kind of wrong. And I was like, exactly. But it's because I've lost the ability to just have almost like a blanket level conversation. I have to get really into something now because I don't know how to make small talk, you know? And like, someone will come and talk to me, and that's when I get really anxious. You know, once I'm in a conversation, but I get really into a sense of anxiety because there's nowhere that I need to do that necessarily apart from that situation. Yes. And there's nowhere that I'll find it, you know?
Interesting. So it's like, for me, the idea is worse than when you're in it. When I'm in a good conversation versus the idea of, let's say, even going to Smithfield for the first time, I'm just thinking, I'm going to have to like talk to people, and I don't know these people, and I don't want to annoy people, and there's all these things going on in my head, let's say, that are pushing me from doing it, and I have to kind of fight against all that in a weird way.
Mad though, because when I remember the first time, like you said earlier, the first time I remember the reason why I loved it was because I just noticed this, like, it's like a ball of energy just coming in, and I was like, this is contagious.
That's like me. So it's when I do it, I haven't done an interview for a job in a long time, but there's this sense that I turn up the Basil, let's say, when I'm nervous, because I'm like, because whatever patterns I've noticed, let's say, now I'm analysing myself like a psychiatrist, but I imagine because I've been in social situations before, my body and brain has realised what works in certain circumstances, whatever. So turning up the Basil, like, probably is a way of combating the nervousness in a way.
Yes, yeah. I get you.
And so even when you're out there, because if you're out performing, right, and you're doing these big fucking soliloquies, like, you can't really match that in a conversation afterwards.
And I wouldn't want it, like,
no, not every conversation can't be that.
Could you imagine, like, what did you have for dinner last night? 2 lasagnas and a fish and chips was on the way, lads. I wouldn't be able to do it, and like, it's just, I think there's I love when people play characters on stage, and I get that, right? But I wouldn't necessarily say that I play a character. I'd say that I would play a more heightened emotional version of myself. Yes! So when I'm on stage, a lot of it is like, even though it doesn't come out, a lot of it is anger, and a lot of it is kind of letting anxiety out. And like, it's like the idea of, do you ever hear like people walking into an ocean and just screaming? When I'm on the stage, that is what I'm doing.
Or like, screaming to the pillow, whatever
100%. And that's why, like, when I'm on stage, there's things that I do that it's not that I have it planned out. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just this release of emotion.
When you tune into that frequency, the stuff that happens is in line with that, but you're not. It just kind of happens because you're tapping in. It's like you're tapping into a part of yourself and then deciding to turn that up.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's the most, I think it's the purest part of myself as well, if that makes sense. And it's the part of me that, like, when I'm on stage, there's no such thing as anxiety. There's no such thing as, there used to be a time when I call it autopilot, right? So I get on stage, when I started off performing, I'd get on stage and the next thing you know, I was off stage. And I'd done a set, like, and the set would have been good or whatever, you know, but someone would be like, what did you think of doing that poem? And I was like, I have no idea, because I was just waiting to get to I was just going until I got to the end.
Yes.
And then with time came the fact that I'd be on a stage and I'd, like, say if I said a line and needed to take a pause, right? I'd say the line, and as I'm taking a pause, I'd just stop. And I just say to myself, this is the only moment that I have everybody just here now. You know what I mean? And it's not a power feeling. It's just a thing of, like, this is a true version of myself that people might love or people might hate.
Yes.
But they've got such strong feelings towards it.
Wow.
You know, it's powerful.
Them moments of because for me, I find I battle with this. It's easier for me because as I'm singing and playing guitar, right? Sometimes if there's too much of a gap in if I'm not saying anything, I'm combating this now, but I'll fill the gaps with, here's Basil Breen, like, oh, look at me, like, blah, 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 which is kind of because I'm not, like, obviously I feel this. It's like in a conversation. I'll keep the conversation going because anytime that there's a void, I feel I'm pulled in to fill it. So with the music, as I'm singing, instead of just letting it...
Yeah, because it's not a void. And I don't think it's the same as conversation. When you're in a conversation, and I get what you can get jarring, right? But when you're... There's something that artists have that's really beautiful when you're on the stage, and it's why I encourage everyone to get on the stage. There's an element of it where everybody just needs to be listened and everybody just needs to be heard at times. And when you're on the stage, you get that. And you get that, it's like a privilege almost, where you can just be there and people will listen to your art, which is technically your story in some way, shape or form. So when you're playing, instead of filling the void, if you just sat there and you're like, this is a moment now that everyone is listening to me and this is what I have, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it can be
and letting that be
thing.
it.
Yeah,
in a way.
It's just like, it's not the idea of being better than anyone. It's not the idea of holding a power that someone doesn't have. It's just the idea of this is one of the only moments that people are going to hear me for me.
Yes.
A version of myself that I created when nobody else was around. And the mask slips now. Because no matter what, I don't believe there's anybody who is 100% authentic with every single person they meet.
Oh, yes.
I don't think it works.
No.
So when you're creating your art, I think your art.
Yes.
It's like this element of yourself that nobody will ever see.
This is such an interesting point because different people will bring different parts out of you. Different things that you partake in will also bring different parts out of you. But there is something. Now what you're describing is when you are kind of honest to the art and to the work. I think because sometimes that can be put you in a vulnerable situation. So sometimes you shy away from perhaps saying what's in your heart because perhaps you're just afraid of being vulnerable or you're afraid of what people might think, whatever. It's when you can be, or even just you're afraid to just put, for me, because I kind of got, I was a bit late. Picked up the guitar when I was about 24, so I was a bit late into, let's say, and then writing and stuff, I only started when I was maybe, so it was later into my, let's say, development that I got into all this, so I had to come out as a musician, let's say, or as a songwriter, and then I had to put this new version out myself. And I thought that whole development has been. I'm still on that now. I feel like I'm more like the sort of person I wanted to be versus the person I was. There was misalignment, but now there's more alignment in that in a way. You know what I mean?
I break up my life from, say, before 19 and after 19, right?
Yes.
And the difference in person is insane, because when I was in school, I definitely was like this annoying kid who didn't have any idea who I was. So I would say and do anything just to make what I thought would be friends, or like, you know what I mean, and just being a bit of a dope, like. And then when I got into art, it was just this. It was like my life isn't all the way together, but at least I'm honest enough to be able to tell myself that through the medium of art, and either you respect that or you don't respect it, and it's just this feeling of inner pride almost. You know what I mean? And it's not ego. It's not an ego. It's like, yeah, it's like art made me realize that my life isn't all the way together.
Yes.
But I will use art to help me get my life together, and it's definitely a solace for me. You know, and
so I think there's parts of, let's say, the creative work that mightn't sound like they're not all going to be on a Hallmark card. Let's say, like for me, I realized that I like when I have a good song, let's say, that I think is good, that I enjoy the melody, or there's a cleverness to what I think is clever. Let's say, I'm like, I like that. I'm real proud that I did that. And I'm like, no one can really take that away from me in a way. And I'm not like, it's if people get stuff out of it, like, that's great as well. But it's more, I realise that my creative thing is more, the joy that I get is more about creating something that I'm like, I think this is really good. You know what I mean? And because what other people like might be just so different than, let's say, your inner city vocab video, right? There might be elements in that you weren't even thinking of that people will like. You know what I mean? But you might have really liked one part of it and thought that was the best thing in it.
Yeah.
Like someone I like in that video, I won't get too into it now, but when you sat down, you were like, poetry is different, man. The way you did that, the whole acting, but I don't want to get into that now. I want to go back, right, to when you started actually performing, that we alluded to there. How did you get on this path, like from being a little boisterous young lad? It was.
Yeah, I don't know. I talked about it a little bit in another podcast that I done, but it was like I firmly believe that there was a million different moments that got me into wherever I am now.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just the one in a million chances that they all worked out perfectly together. So I have no idea how one thing led to another. I can only remember it in like big block segments.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I wrote Out of Trauma, which was like a great and really bad thing. I discussed it on a show that I had before, where it's like I you know, that people get into music to release art, like what you were saying, they release art and they go in with the intention of making something and putting it out to the public, right?
Yes.
When I started off, it wasn't like that for me. It was very much like writing to myself or writing letters to people that weren't here, and that kind of transcribed into the poetry thing. The idea of performing, I couldn't pinpoint when it happened, because I performed in so much before poetry. I was rapping, I was in a band.
You're performing, even when you were saying there, as a young lad, maybe trying to get a laugh. I was performing as a young lad for years.
Yes.
Just trying to get a rise out of something or making a laugh.
Or I'd go to like a gaff party and I'd be sitting out the back and I'd be like just sitting there rapping or whatever, just because when you rap, you realise that people will come over and talk, there might be a can given to you, you know.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, I think there's a natural element to someone who always wants to perform. Like even when I was younger, I was mad, and still now, I'm mad into showmen. And when I say like show people, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, when you get into it, not these like Liam Gallagher's or like Freddie Mercury's, although they are amazing performers. I'm talking about the people who are performers off the stage. Like they are characters, they are people.
Yeah.
Trying to get examples like Elton John. He's a character off the stage as much as he is on the stage. The Buck Whaley, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No.
Historical figure in Ireland, rode a horse up a set of stairs before. But he was just known, like, you know?
That's his legendary
That's what he's known for. Like.
Yeah.
Bang Bang, who would have been well known, who's a lad that's well known around Dublin from years before. I was interested in characters, showmen off a stage.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
People that are just interested, that can do that in the world. Anyway.
I always had that element of like, I always loved to almost like look at the art of life, right? And so when I started writing, it was very much about that. It was very much documenting stuff. Like I am my worst own critic, and it is in such a negative way.
Yes.
You know. So I got poems that like people would turn around and say, "Oh, I love that," and I was just like, "Yeah," and it's annoying me, like, you know. And I never really wrote just to write. So like in a city vocab, that video, that was writing just to show off the language and just to write. it was something that I found so hard to do. And when you say like a purist, like I definitely was. There were times beforehand that I was just like, this isn't art. I was like, you know, and like in such a negative way, like stuff that I was writing.
Blocker stuff.
Yeah. And the weird thing about it was it never happened with other people. Like I'd never turn around and be like, that art is just terrible. I'd be like, well, I can actually see the comedy in this, or I can see the sadness in this. I can see how intricate some parts of it are. And then I'd write something and I was like, this is woeful. Yes. You know what I mean? Like,
but I heard this is interesting because in that in the previous podcast, shout out to Dublin Live, I think it is.
A Life in Dublin. Baby.
Life in Dublin, yeah. This is a continuation in some ways. I think you mentioned something about not like you were talking about commission pieces, and you're like, I could never do a commission piece, let's say, for example. But I bet you there's a commission piece that if I didn't tell you it was a commission piece and I showed it to you, and you didn't know, you'd be like, oh, that's probably good. You know what I mean?
It's not like I wouldn't do commission pieces. It's that I wouldn't be like I do commission work, right? So I'm doing a lot.
I mean, I work for money.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm doing
100%.
like I've done a lot of projects for people, but it's more so I wouldn't be able to do commercial stuff just for the sake of doing it. So like if you turn around and you're like, can you write me a poem about Brennan's bread?
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to do that because I
you
don't know
could,
you know?
But that's not who you. If something aligned with who you were as a person,
yeah.
Let's say, for example, something that you that was in your your vicinity of interest, let's say. Brennan's bread, it would just, for me, there's certain things that would cheapen what I'm doing, let's say, in my head.
I think some people do it really well, where they're able to disconnect almost the personal thing from it.
Yes.
So they're able to write about like objects, they're able to write about ads, and that's like a talent within itself, because I don't know how people do 100%. That, you know? And that's like one thing that I hate about my own art is I always bring it back to myself.
Yes.
I can never, like I always try to write poems about like, say a woman that I saw on the street or stuff like this, and it would always be like, and I thought, and I'm like, I'm such a narcissist.
I know, I'm the same. I don't really write story. All my things are from a first person kind of objective thing, or I'm talking to you about what I think is right, or something like that in a way.
Yeah.
But other people do write stories. So I know a really good songwriter, Keith Eastwood. He writes these great stories of, you know, a wife and a husband and all this stuff, or whatever, and that's their style. But I think you have to be kind of true to whatever it is, even if you think it's like narcissism. Like, let's say on the extreme end, right, narcissism is real negative, but to not have any sort of value and belief in yourself is also bad as well. So there's like narcissism is one side of a bad coin, let's say. But then whatever's the other end of it, like you need a little bit of all the bad stuff.
100%. You need ego. Like.
Yes.
And everyone thinks that ego is a bad thing. Too much ego is a bad thing.
Yes.
But enough ego isn't. And that's why, like, I've said, like, there's people before that turned around and said, to me, they'd be like, you're very confident. And I'd be like, well, why wouldn't I be? You know what I mean? Like, nobody's like me.
Yeah.
And I'm not like you, and I'm not like this person.
Exactly.
It's like, there's a mad contradiction that I always find where people always talk about self-love and self-care. And I think it might just be a specific to Irish thing. I don't know. People always talk about, like, love yourself and put yourself first. At the same time, people, it's like, oh, he's kind of full of himself.
That's the thing.
You know, well,
we hate people. I think be full of yourself. Exactly. Like you were saying, you're your biggest critic. I'm also a massive critic myself, but I'm also a massive fan of myself as well. Like, I'm real, when I'm doing something good, I can look myself in the eye and say, fair fucking play to you. Like, you're doing well.
It took me so long to realise that ego is always good once it's not deflected onto someone else. So self-love or belief in yourself or loving yourself is such a positive thing. But the issue is a lot of people love themselves too much, and then they don't like people because they don't think they're as good as them.
That's the thing.
I love myself, but I also love I think nobody is better than one person. Like, do you know what I mean?
You're not. No one's like, there's enough pie, or you're not worried about someone taking your pie.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You're full.
Yeah, exactly. And one person's success is not someone else's failure. I love that phrase.
That's so brilliant. And like, we're all susceptible. Like, I remember when I was younger, when I was hearing about even a friend who was shout out to Paddy O'Leary. He got into a better computing course than me, or I wasn't even thinking. Anyway, he was, but in my head, I never really thought. I told him this years later. But for some reason, when I was analysing myself, I was kind of jealous that he was doing this cooler degree, or because he was getting into the computers more, or whatever I thought. But it was actually like, the jealousy was from a sense of like, I should be doing that,
Yeah.
not him. Because jealousy and inspiration are the same thing, I think. You know what I mean? They're just flipped in a way.
Like that.
So yeah, like, because they're really, because you can look now. Now I come to everything I see that inspires me. Like, I think you were mentioning it in this in your previous podcast about when you're seeing art, and you were like, I need to raise my fucking game.
Yeah.
Because look at all these people out here raising their game. I felt the same going to the open mic scene. I was like, what is going on? Why am I writing more? I need to be writing better. I need to push myself more, because that's the driver in a way. So you're looking at it as inspiration, not, oh, look at him, that's stupid anyway.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, I think it's important when it comes to stuff like that. It's important to always say, let's not like be silly about it. Like, I always want to be the best, whatever that means. Do you know what I mean? But it's not that I want to be the best because I want someone else to be second. It's just, that's my mentality. If you're not, and like there's people that I know that I'll never be able to write like some people, right?
Yes.
But I don't want to, right? It's just about if I can write the best that I can do, right? And when I used to go to the like open mics and used to watch people perform, I remember I used to turn around and say like, well, I can't do that, but I can do something else that would be equally as good as that.
Yes.
You know? And it's that kind of competitive drive without having the bitterness to it.
But
you know?
that's the without the bitterness. But competition drives the people to do great things, like having a nemesis, like in a positive way. Not that I have one.
Yeah.
Shout out to my nemesis. But I imagine it would drive me more. You know what I mean? If I had an enemy and I knew that they were out there, like, so you can tap in, but like maybe that's in a super negative way. But imagine I met for coffee with my nemesis and we were friendly, but we both knew we were like let's say Paul McCartney and John Lennon. They'd be like, oh, coming to you with a song, right? Like Penny Lane and stuff. And then like that was a response to John Lennon writing Strawberry Fields, or vice versa. Let's say he was like, oh, I'm gonna write a song about my childhood. Oh yeah, what do you think about this, John? Them two were pushing each other.
Yeah, and it works.
It works because, and you need that, because if you're not, well, not that you need it, but I think it's if you can generate that kind of healthy competition in a way where you're not like, curse this other person.
Exactly. You do need that drive. And on the flip side of it, like, I've seen a lot of people who will come into a scene and people turn around and say like, oh, I love this steady, I love this, and they almost kind of bottle it then because they don't have that drive. They just see themselves as not as great, but they don't have that one person that they view as better, or the one person that they think.
But they can become like, the ideal in the future, let's say.
I get really worried when I see people start off in the scene, because I'm just very personally invested in the scene. I think Ireland has some of the best acts, and I always want to see the people do the best. But like, I get very worried when I see someone who say like 3 to 6 months in it, and they're a great act, and everybody is like, oh, that's steady, oh, that was steady, oh, that was steady, oh, that was cool. And so there's sometimes, like, there has been times where people have turned around to me and said like, what do you think of that? And I'm not being rude to them, but I'd be like, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
You know? And it's not even, I don't even want to say it in a way of like, I think it was bad, but like, yeah, it's okay.
It was okay.
And you can see people kind of go like,
but that's the problem. We all mollycoddle at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
Like, so, like, I meet my good friend Keith Eastwood, right? He knows when I don't like one of the songs, or like that's not my super cup of tea, let's say, because I don't get as excited about it. I'll say it's all right, but when he sends me the good one, I'm like sending him audio messages going, man, this is the one. Like, this is brilliant. But you can't, like, if I was just saying that every single one of them was good,
it's terrible.
It's terrible. And you need to know where you stand with people.
Exactly. You need to, like, it's just.
I know it was great. Everyone's going to tell you you're great, man.
Yeah, and it's
just because you're afraid to say that it's not.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's another thing that I always notice. It's like, once again, it's not saying that one person is better than the other, but you know when like the one thing about being around for so long is I've known a lot of, I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of scenes, and I be at a lot of gigs and all the sort of stuff. But you kind of see that people get almost intimidated by it. Do you know what I mean? And people are kind of like, oh, that was him. Oh, I just want to shake a hand. And it's kind of just sitting there, you're like, lad, I'm a 25-year-old dude from Dublin who got up on stage 10 minutes of a night. It's not that big of a deal. But I know when this positive criticism is coming in, and it's like, it's just false. Yeah. It's like that. I'm really lucky that I have a couple of mates there, like the poet Jeff and all that's there. Shout out to him.
Yes.
And like, I know him so long now. It's been 5 or 6 years, and we started off together. To the point of like, he will send me some, like what you were saying with your mate. He'll be like, yeah, look, I think you just need to tweet this. I think you need to not write this. I think you need to take this part out. And I'll be like, this is what I need now. But then there's other times that like we done a show last December of 2021, I think it was. Yes, it was. And I remember I went on stage and I said, so that was one of the best shows that I've ever done in my life. And I was so proud of it.
Yes.
Got off stage. Jeff walked in, just gave me a hug, and he was like, that's art. And it meant so much more to me.
Because you knew that he meant it.
Yes.
That's the thing.
It's people that I've met that have... I know people for months on end and they have never said one bad thing. And I get worried about that because I know I wreck people's heads. I know that I sometimes I get on stage and I'm so drunk, I'm shy. I'm slurring my words. It's like, oh, that's amazing. Nah.
No, I wouldn't say everything's not everyone's cup of tea as well. Exactly. That's the other thing. Like, for me, for my personal taste, Annie Peters, for whatever she's saying... I think she's like the greatest of all time in my head, right? Whatever that means, but that's my personal taste, and like I think your stuff is brilliant. Do you know what I mean? But in my head, I'm like, oh, that's my kind of cup of tea, right? But I'm not gonna be like, oh, everyone's fucking brilliant. Everyone's just an Annie Peters or everyone's an Emma, like because there's other people that are at different levels of development or whatever. And you're not gonna, and then everything, because it's the problem, right, was when if I make a public declaration, let's say that, oh, this guy is the fucking king, right, then every other declaration I make has to kind of be in line with that. Exactly. Even if you come up, you should just do a test, right? You should go up on stage and just say, like, just do a shit poem and just see what happens.
Like,
yeah, just see what happens.
I used to wreck my head. I used to always see people get, like, you know, open mics where people start off and, you know, you take the good with the bad. Not everyone is going to be a performer. Not everyone is able to write. But, like, I saw a massive shift in the open mic scene before lockdown and after lockdown. And I actually think that the open mic scene in Dublin now is not the organisations itself, but the view of it. The view of the open mic scene is really bad. And I don't think it's good, but it used to be a lot better. Not the nights now, just the community. Do you know what I mean? The nights are still, like, Smithfield Creators and Circus are amazing, always have been. But just the communities within and the perspective and what people are looking for out of open mics. One thing that wrecks my head is, and I think I actually heard you talk about it on a podcast or something before, there are people who sit in crowds, laugh at people on stage, or pass comments with people on stage. They get off stage and they're like, "Oh, that was deadly."
Oh,
and I would now, I'd be more inclined to just turn around. But that right there, and I'd say it. I'd be like, "Don't listen to this person. Don't listen to this person because they were saying stuff when they were off stage." And I'm not doing it to store up, but like this fakeness thing, it ties in as well, and it kind of wrecks my head. You know?
It does, and for me, so. When I see something, I usually remember stuff that sticks with me. Like if something was good in the performance, like there's a line that you said in one of your poems. This is one of the first. This is the line that stuck with me. Was it's something to do with. Did I write it down? I must have written it down. Did I? It was a love poem, but it was like, tell me all your wants of love and I'll give it to you in abundance or something like that. But I just thought it was such a clever turn of phrase, and this was ages ago. But that, like, lines kind of stick with me from people more so than bodies of work, let's say. That's why I think I like Annie Peters, because I love some of her lines. I'm just like, I have to think about them for a long time in a way.
Exactly, because spoken word is like, it's all performance and it's how fast can you go and what can you talk about and how much can it flow. But then, like, say Annie comes up, that's poetry. The lines, when people ask me the difference between poetry and spoken word, and for me, spoken word is performance.
Yes.
It's about how you get on stage.
Flow, rhythm, maybe.
When you're writing a poem, in my opinion, the goal should be every word on the page sticks. Yes. Every word has meaning. Annie does that to perfection.
Yes.
It's like every time she takes a pause, and I feel like the pauses are so warranted in her stuff because you need to just, what have we just heard? Digest this, right? And you're taking along a story line by line, and it's just so.
But this for me, we all. What I was trying to get back to there was sometimes if someone gets off the stage, let's say, and I didn't think they were that great. Sometimes I like if they come by me, I'll be like, I'll still go fair play for getting up or something. You know what I mean? Even though I won't be as enthusiastic, I won't be like, oh, that thing you did there, blah blah. The part of me thinks, okay, at least give people a bit of credit for getting up, but you don't have to be like, you don't need to just try not to be. So one thing you can always be honest about is like, okay, I appreciate that you got up, whatever, but you don't have to overdo it, because when they're good, when they have a really good set, they'll know that you like. There was one guy on a Moricon, I can't remember, I haven't seen him in a while. But we were doing like remember it met up at like 3 different nights, but on the third night he was flowing because he was so good. I was like, man, you can see that, like, that's just after built. Then because you did it multiple days in a row, but then you're being sort of. But yeah, how can you, like, because there is a tendency of fakeness, as in it's easier to just say, oh, you're brilliant, everyone's brilliant, yay, in a way, because it's you don't want to hurt people as well.
Yeah.
But and especially but what do you do if someone's starting off? Like, I suppose you have to kind of say. Like, if let's say I came off the stage, right, and I said I had this terrible poem, right, that you thought was terrible for your taste because maybe there was too many sentences in each sentence, or too many words in each sentence. It was real blocky. Like, what do you do? Do you just say, "Oh yeah, this is what you can"?
I mean, so, like, I sometimes you just say nothing at all. Sometimes that's the best thing to do. And like, one thing is, like, I would give my opinion if someone asked. But other than that, I wouldn't be like, they'd be like, what do you think of this poem? I'd be like, I don't know, let me read it. Like, I'd be able to give criticism. But sometimes you just say nothing at all. I think people can tell. I think, you know.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. You don't have to be like, oh yeah, that was terrible. Like.
No, but there was one situation that I remember having before. 2 people were performing and they were both asking me for advice, and I was kind of helping them rework the poetry, right? One person got up, it was a good while ago. They done a great poem. It was a solid poem. It was a solid poem, right?
Yeah.
Then like a little while in the night in the open mic, the next person got up in the international. They done their poem, amazing. They had tweaked it. It just made it, the performance is perfect, right? And afterwards came back off stage. I was like, that blew my mind. Like, it was amazing.
Yes.
Went outside and person A came up and they was like, oh, just like, you know, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, it was solid. They were like, well, is there anything else that you should change? And I was like, I don't think you can change anymore in the poem. Do you know what I mean? I just think it's a solid poem.
Yeah.
And then a little while later, they turned and goes, I actually felt a little bit kind of, not jealous, but just put off because I had asked you for the advice and I was like, but I don't know, like, I don't know what you kind of want here. Like, do you know what I mean? And you shouldn't be envious because I didn't give you the reaction that you wanted.
Well.
You know? And I was like, you just need to kind of...
You need to
take the step back.
Yes.
And, you know, because like, especially with open mics, I think you're going to an open mic that, like, I test out new material, and sometimes I'm there and I'm like, this was terrible. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it's terrible.
So, a big part of it comes down to the biggest thing is self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
You need to be self-awareness is the meta skill that rules all skills, because let's say if you're doing a terrible performance, you'll be able to pick up on, let's say, the vibe in the room. Like, I noticed, I'll look back at footage of me and I'll be like, oh, that bit in the song, like, I need to work on that, like, I'm falling flat on that, or, no, my hand, like, look at me, like, have all this criticism. But then, obviously, the good stuff, sometimes all I do see is the bad stuff, though.
But then there's also, like, just going back to, like, just from my own personal performances, one thing that I've noticed is it's not always extreme. Like, there's a grey area. It's not always really bad and it's not always really good. Like, we focus on the terrible performances and the amazing ones. There are some sets that I have, right, 10, 15 minute sets of 3 poems. I'm like, that's a solid set.
Yeah.
There's nothing amazing about it.
Yeah, it's grand.
But it will never go down the wrong way. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they need to, like, I think we focus a lot on how can we just go up and go up and go up and go. Sometimes it's good to just have that safety net. And you don't need everything to be
have
perfect.
Your tie 5 or whatever.
Exactly,
like
you know? Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got 3 poems. If ever I'm stuck, I'll do a love poem. I'll do probably, like, the north side. I'll do a religion poem. They're solid.
Yeah,
right?
You know that they're safety net in a way.
You know, and I don't need to go back to it. Yes. I don't need to, but I'll never turn, like, there's other times then that I'll be like, right, this is a big show, I need to put the work in. And when I put the work in, that's when I'm expecting this amazing stuff.
Yes.
Anyone that goes to open mic scenes, by the way, just, I have to stress this, like, just enjoy it. Don't think about, like, always be like, what do I want to do next? I want to one up. But don't, like, put yourself down, because it's, like, one of the best times that you can have as an artist.
100%.
And you learn so much, you're enveloped so much. And I just see a lot of people maybe focusing too much on what's next. You know, it's not about the what's next; it's about the what
enjoying now as well. But obviously, having one. So if you're self-aware, then you know, kind of, you can try to tell where you stand, and what other people say is beneficial or non-beneficial. It can be beneficial if you receive it in a way that, okay, I'm listening to this now, but it's not the end-all be-all what this person says. I need to be the final arbiter of what I view that thing as. Because you could, maybe if it was terrible, it's like, well, that was for me. That was my cup of tea. But let's say you say something like, oh, there was too many words in that, or didn't really have a good rhyming scheme. I didn't understand it, whatever. Then I could be like, okay, let me just look at that. Actually, let that into my heart. And if I look at it and then I say, oh no, I don't see what he said, but I appreciate that he said it. You know what I mean? But you don't have to listen to the criticism or whatever. But you shouldn't be like, oh, he didn't like it.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
And actually, to be fair, I used to be really bad for that. When I started off, I used to be really, really bad for that. Someone would turn out and be like, you know what? I just don't think this part of the poem worked. And I was like, what do you mean? Do you know? And I think the reason for it is art is it can be so personal.
Yes.
And you know, if somebody's giving me advice on poems, and I know I got it when I started workshopping, I noticed this. Like, you write a poem about like somebody passing away, for example. You criticize that poem, like, you know, it's hard, man. It's hard, and like it can be really tricky. So I used to get really defensive about people criticizing my art.
Yes.
And then it was only like what you talked about when you sit there and saying, I'm gonna take this advice in. I agree with it. I don't agree with it, but I appreciate the advice is given. It helped me so much, but it took me so long to grasp that. And it was almost like I would imagine that people were against me. Now, there's definitely times that I know people do give advice with the intent of, it's not a good intention, right? And I've seen that happen, not just to myself, but to a lot of people. And you can kind of spot it, but it takes so long to spot that.
In what way?
I think there's sometimes people, like, I think that there's sometimes that people give advice, and I think the reason why they give advice is to not make the poem better or worse, just maybe to suit their own narrative.
Okay.
I didn't really like how you said this, so would you mind changing?
Oh.
I didn't like these words, so would you mind changing? I had a massive thing. I'm an openly sexual, like I'm pansexual, right?
Oh.
And so I always...
Pans means everything.
Yeah, I've got the boat, like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
more attracted to people's personalities and their minds than I am of them. Okay. Now, not to say that looks like that, but you know what I mean, right? The point that I'm making here is, there has been multiple times that I have seen people from the inner city, right? And they're not gay, using words like queer, using words like faggot, right? People get really offended by that. And they're like, I need you to change this. That wrecks my head, because these are the words that we grew up hearing. These are the words that we grew up using. And to just cancel that away. Now, I'm not saying throw it around anywhere.
Oh, yes.
But like, there's times where people are like, we used to grow up and we used to grow up and the word queer be thrown around, talking about how that's wrong, still being... not cancelled their silence for it, but you should probably change that. I think that's terrible advice.
Yeah.
Because this is someone's like... And one thing that I noticed is when I wrote The North Side, the idea... And it's something that I really questioned myself. The idea of the word queer, right? So when I was younger, queer was such a bad thing to say. And it was this like really negative connotation. And now that I'm older, it's like, yes, let's celebrate queer. Do you know, let's celebrate the word. And I'm like, great, look, I understand you're taking the word back and I get it. But I'm not just going to switch off being offended to a word just because somebody says now that's all right.
Yes.
The word queer still properly offends me. And if somebody turned around to me like, are you queer? I'd be like, look, if you want to use that word, work away. But when I was younger, the word queer meant a bad thing, and I'm not willing.
You queer?
I'm not willing to. Oh, now it's good because I call it myself. No way. But if somebody's saying to a poem, and they're like, so I have a poem in the North Side, I'm like, couldn't even leave that gaff when you're known as a queer, right? That's all right for me to say, apparently. But if there's another lad who lived the exact same life as me, who sees it the exact same way as me, and uses the word queer, he'll be ostracised for it simply because he's a straight man.
Oh, yeah.
Do you get where I'm coming from with this? So I think that can be really negative advice to be given someone, you know?
This is so interesting because it reminds me, this is actually something I wanted to kind of talk about in a way. Just art and words, because a good example is Fairy Tale in New York. Like, you scumbaggy baggy, yeah. Well, you know, like, I don't really want to say it, right? Because I just feel weird saying it now, right? Because I don't know. But the use of that word in art, let's say, and then in your poem, or there's a poem you do, like a Chucky our la up the raw, like the gra in our heart and stuff. Then people, like when I was listening to that, I was listening to all this shy about like the Irish football team getting in trouble for using this word, but like a part of me thinks, like, and it's not like you can just make a song just filled with the N-word, let's say, and it can just be, that's great art.
See, it's circumstantial, right? So a word like that I could never use, and the reason why I could never use that is because I know and I never would want to use it.
Yes.
It's because I know the connotation that it has. I don't think it needs to be said, and I don't think I would want to say that. Even if I was referencing a time beforehand. I wouldn't say that word, right? It's a word that I'm uncomfortable using. If somebody of that race wants to use that word, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm mad offended by this.
Yes.
You have every right to use that word, right? But I think the idea of centering every word, I think it's circumstantial. Do you know what I mean? I do think it's really circumstantial.
But and then like with that song, let's say, and then because you're this is what I think about, is that you're talking about like history, like a period of time, let's say, where we're looking into the past and saying, oh, like we have to change the lyrics in this song. Even like Money for Nothing uses like that derogatory term for gay people, and then and the fact that that's poem that you were writing about, like let's say the IRA, right? We're not like saying, oh, like terrorism is great and all. You're not talking about that. You're talking about the ethos of like 1916 and what brought us to sort of independence in a way. So I think when you're using language in that way for a it's like a period piece in a way, and you're not. And then for these other songs as well that have they got at the time when they were made, let's say, they fit in a particular context or whatever, and it's like that, and like the Roald Dahl books, I don't know if you've heard about this, but they're getting all changed and stuff, and it's like, where does it end?
Where does the line draw, you know? And like I remember when I released that Era poem, it received a lot of criticism, and fair play, like fair enough that it did, and it bothered me at first. But I kind of also sat there and said, I'm not going to change this, because I don't think I need to explain to everyone what this poem means. And the fact that like it talks historically between 1586 and 1937. So if people want to draw in what it meant in the 70s or 80s or 60s, they can walk away.
It makes no sense.
I'm not going to change that, because I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to say like, it wasn't our history, and it is our history, and I'm not going to forget our history, and I think it.
But you're speaking to the spirit of them times.
Exactly, and I think if people want to criticise it, they can, and they're more than welcome to. But I'm standing by that, because I'm standing by what our country stood for then, and I think it's disrespectful to the leaders to I don't want to give too much of my opinion, but it's disrespectful to the leaders of that time to just wipe away certain things that they created
because of what came afterwards or whatever.
You know what I mean? Like if we shouldn't say up the IRA in reference to that now.
Yes.
Then we shouldn't say up the IRB. We shouldn't say anything about the flying column. Sinn Féin should probably be wiped out, because it's all founded under the same name. You know what I mean? And it's
so that's what I mean. You're like eventually you get to this place where nothing is sacred. Basically, everything needs to go, because you're outlawing, and like when you're doing things like a period piece, especially in art, in movies and stuff, like you hear all sorts of derogatory terms, but it's used in that. You have to look at it from the context. But I think today
it's so dependent on society as well. Like one thing that I always question is, you know, when J.K. Rowling got cancelled or whatever, I was like, right, fair enough. I can understand why people aren't going to like her anymore. Why is Yeats being celebrated? Do you know what I mean? Yeats was known not in the same way as hating on trans people.
Yes.
Yeats was known to be sort of a misogynist, definitely a bit of a perverted man. Do you know what I mean? And like he had so many negative things about him. Like why are we picking and choosing here? Do you know what I mean? We have to be consistent or inconsistent with it. There's also a certain element of it that you have to divide the person from the art, and I feel like it is necessary. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of artists that I don't like, but I do appreciate their art. I hate you too, but I can appreciate some of Bono's lyrics.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
And if Hitler, it's unfortunate, but if he had a nice painting, objectively, if it was nice, then I couldn't say that. It's like, even, it's terrible to say, but like Bill Cosby was funny. Like he was funny, but he was a terrible person. Like these two things can be true. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that I think you should have that separation in a way, but I don't think you have to. You can have that separation, but it doesn't mean that you let the perpetrator keep getting away with whatever it was.
Specific to literature as well, though. I don't know what it is. But it's hard to explain, like because there's so much art that really saves. I think art in terms of literature can really save someone's life, and like in any art form can. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's just something we can learn a lot from all types of art, as bad as the person may be. Do you know what I mean? And I wouldn't celebrate some people's art
Oh yeah, exactly. I won't be like, oh yeah, let's
but I just feel like
sell these Hitler draws or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's what I mean.
that.
You don't have to do that,
Yeah.
but you can say like objectively saying things that you feel are true in your heart and not shying away from it just because certain things are true. You can't help, like you're saying, that being a pansexual, like being a like obviously. I know what it's like to be attracted to a woman, so I know that's what you have, or how you exist. You just have that same, except for every sort of gender or whatever. You know what I mean? So like, there's no real separation, but I can understand attraction. You know what I mean? So I understand that base layer. You know what I mean? Even though I don't understand, like looking at a man and being like, oh yeah, like that's doing it for me, whatever.
Different things.
Yeah.
But it's just about. I think it's really important to just like have, and like you said, this objective look of just like, oh yeah, that's a nice painting.
Yeah. What do you mean?
It's not a big
painting.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Like, you know, that's a nice painting. That's a good book. Yeah, like whatever. You know,
it's all about sides, man. What side you're on, or whatever it is, and it's interesting because you're because of your sexual orientation. Let's say, like you're like a foot, like not a foot, but like the culture wars, let's say, that are fought around. Not that I have any clue about what is what, or like what should be the right opinion in terms of these things, but there's so much debate on like terms and language and everything, and it's interesting to hear your perspective on words like queer or whatever, that in a particular context they shouldn't be kind of swept away. Or...
It's just a personal opinion. I think once again I have to stress, like, it's circumstantial to the word, the situation, of course.
Exactly. If you're using it in a hateful way, you're not going to support that.
Yeah, but it's just I just think that there's certain elements where I think it's nasty to hear.
Yeah,
it's nasty to hear. That's what it. Like one of my favorite movies is 12 Years a Slave. Right?
Yes.
I couldn't watch that movie for a long time because there's a specific scene in it, right?
Yes.
If anyone's seen the movie, they'd probably know the scene. Another one was another movie called Irreversible by Gaspar Noé. Gaspar Noé's an Argentinian director. I love all his movies, but Irreversible is about like sexual assault and stuff. But the one thing that Gaspar Noé does is he doesn't shy away from it. It is there. Do you know what I mean? It's there and it's on the screen and it's full on. Wow. And I couldn't, like, same moment every time, turn the movie off, couldn't watch it. Couldn't watch it. And then I sat there and I was like, you know what? This, just because it's hard doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be there. You need to experience this. Do you know what I mean? You have to experience the hard parts of life.
Yes.
I think, like, I don't know about terms and languages. It's such a fuzzy area for me, but I definitely think that we're living in a society nowadays where we shelter too much.
Yes.
We really shelter too much. Ricky Gervais done it. There's a clip of Ricky Gervais talking about it, but I agree. One of the worst sentences I hear is, this is offensive. I'm offended.
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, okay. You find that offensive. That's cool that you find that offensive. I understand that you find that offensive, but it's here and it's in your face. And what are you going to do about it? Because some parts of history are offensive.
Yes.
Some parts of life are offensive. I've lived a life that's offensive. Do you know what I mean?
But it's just, where do you draw the line? Like, oh, I think tattoos are offensive. You're offending me now.
They're so trivial. Like,
no, but everything's so trivial. No, but that's what I'm saying. You don't. If you're just saying that offense is the metric, then everyone can decide what's offensive. But I think the most important thing, so you're talking about shelter, and it's more, we need to become resilient to offense. Like, someone could abuse me, right? And like, maybe like I've hurt or whatever, but it's like, okay, I'm not gonna like. I can't let someone else dictate how I feel with their words if I can help it. Now, obviously, if a family member is close to me, they could hurt me more than a stranger, let's say, because it would hurt more from my brother if he was fucking taking me jumper or something, you know what I mean? But I think we need to build up a sort of... Because if you're just saying that offends me, you can't do that, this and that, then... It's like you're giving so much power away.
Exactly, and the one thing is, like, I always and there's one thing that really frustrates me when we see arguments like, say, that I'm very passionate about. So like the immigration arguments happening at the minute, and before that there was like the COVID and people were going against each other, and I was just sitting there saying, like, we are a society now that can't even converse because we don't go in with the idea to educate one another. We go in with the idea of, I'm right and I'm educating you, and if you don't want to listen, and like, I remember one of the worst things ever was, remember, like, during the lockdown, the protest that happened on They happened at Custom House and they happened on Grafton Street, and it got really violent and people were just fighting each other. And it was the left wing talking about how the right wing is bad and the right wing talking about how the left wing is bad. And I was like, do you know what? These are all arseholes.
Yeah.
I was like, everybody is an arsehole because we don't, what, and I was the same. Like, do you know what I mean? I was like, why am I even having this? Like, why am I sitting here basically just giving out about someone else? I don't even try to educate someone, and I just think I'm right.
Yes.
Let's actually hear people out now.
What they have to say.
Yeah, and now it's the immigration argument, and like, I think I've come about it in a different way. My opinion is that I think we should allow people into the country, whatever, right? But I have noticed that I'm more willing to educate myself while educating other people as well, and taking bits of each side. So now, like, I am pro-immigration. I definitely do understand that there are some issues within there. I'm not going to deny that.
Yes.
And I'm open, and I understand these people's point of view. I just don't necessarily agree with it. But I've definitely learned a lot more than, say, as opposed to the COVID arguments, where it's like, nah, wrong.
Yeah, it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
But that's where the personal growth is. It's realising that there's the yin and yang. Like, there's good and bad in both sides. Like, for example, with the immigration stuff, it's terrible that people are in these situations, and obviously it's like, oh, the compassion thing to do would be to let them in. But then there's another argument that might people say, oh, like, if we're worried about tradition or whatever, then what's going to happen? Like, if you just put 1 million people in Skerries, right?
Yeah.
It would change everything.
But
But things change all the time.
Yeah, I love the fact that people say that, like, it's just an off-the-cuff thing. People are like, Irish culture's being ruined by immigration. I'm like, why? What Irish culture? Like, the Irish culture left when Canada started building gas. The Irish culture left when the government absolutely desecrated this island. The culture left when housing became really unaffordable. It left because nobody does anything about it. How many people out there talking about Irish culture speak fluent in Irish? How many people know about Irish history?
What are you talking about?
Do you know what I mean? And when I say Irish history, I'm talking about way before 1916. I'm talking about all Irish history. How many people know about Irish folklore? How many people actually go to see Irish art, support local Irish businesses? It's like people want to pick up and put down.
They just use that as an excuse. But this the other side of it, right? Is a deeper thing, and it goes back to the COVID argument, right? Because they're all the same kind of argument, right? At a fundamental level, some people's personality types are much more open, right? And they're much more willing for change or whatever. And then some people are more. This is what right and left are. Like, it's conservative and open. So conservatives more like, oh, what we're doing now is fine, and they're actually genuinely scared. Like, they feel a genuine fear. That's what. And then for the COVID stuff, people were afraid of. They were more afraid of people they were afraid of the virus, let's say.
Okay.
Or there was people afraid of the vaccine. But they didn't. Either way, they looked at them with the same level of fear at some sort of fundamental level, and one was just deciding which one they were picking.
It's all the one, like.
It's all the one, and then so it's like you can't. But then when you take the extreme ends, right? So imagine on the extreme end in the immigration side, it's like, oh, let 1 million people into Skerries, right? Or let no people in at all. It's like, okay, can we reach?
So extreme, it's like so extreme. Or we're living in what's meant to be one of the most progressive societies in so long. We're so left wing. So much censorship going around.
Yes.
That's a right wing tactic, apparently. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like everything is just the one. Like, I think the further you go in the extreme left and right scale, the closer you come together.
Yes.
And that's why, like, I try to be as centralist as I can, I suppose. Now I do lean to the left a lot. Like, do you know what I mean? But and then I noticed that, like, it's such a farcical kind of politics nowadays. It's so farcical because I don't think anybody is actually willing or able to converse about it anymore.
And it's I remember there was me and my brother. There's this guy, right? We were watching during COVID, like, we love laughing at this, right? But there's this guy Ben Gilroy, right?
Oh.
And he does, like, just hold on, right? There's this term that me and my family use. It's called crust, right? But it's a way of describing, like, RTE, right? Let's say when they're switched, like, the microphones don't work, or there's a bit of that's a bit of crust, let's say, right? Okay. But with Ben, with all his events, right, the mics wouldn't work, or they'd fall up the stairs, or he'd just be saying, things would be going wrong, right, in the event, right? And it was like comical. It was just the greatest thing to watch. But while they were, let's say, someone was giving a speech. I don't even want to get into it too much, but there was someone with an air horn just going like on the other side of the argument, trying to stop them from speaking. And I think that's not what we want.
That's very American, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's very American.
And it was just stupid. Because I think we should all be able to talk and not try to. We shouldn't be afraid of someone speaking, because I think the best way to defeat, let's say, or like tackle bad ideas is with better ideas, in a way. You know what I mean? And that comes from dialogue. And I think maybe the extremes show up more online or whatever. But like when I talk to people, it's much more of a central kind of thing. You know what I mean? Or like I haven't at least met people on the extreme ends, but I don't know how we're getting into this, right? You're a poet, man, right? We need to bring it back, right? Because I want to go back. We haven't even got it started yet, man. Right? But I want to because I want to get a little bit into, because when you were talking about rap, first of all, right, you were getting into rap, and then came to poetry. Like, so what was your, did you identify more as what was the transition there?
When I was rapping, it was really just much more like the idea of performance, but it wasn't that kind of thing. It was just like a lot of us used to sit around in carbonating houses rapping, and then I went to Stephen's Green. You'd be sitting out in the summer and you start rapping, and like it was more just
off the cuff, or was it?
Yeah, like it was freestyling and stuff, and it was just like I wrote a couple as well, but it was like just for the crack. Do you know what I mean? And we're sitting, like me and a couple of lads would sit down, we'd be listening to rap albums, we'd be like, this is Whopper, just more of a way of expressing. So it was just fun. Like, I didn't really have any expectations for it because I never really wanted to perform it. I just like make a couple of videos, and like we'd just be chilling out, having a few drinks or whatever, and go for it. Like it was very free flowing, I suppose, you know. But then I found out the way that went from rap to poetry was I found that two things. Number one, Irish rap is amazing, but it takes a particular kind of person to do it, and I am not that kind of person. My voice is too like I just get so conscious about it that I just can't do it. So it becomes very fake, and I use a lot of crutches. Yeah. And it's always just about like, smoke weed, I'm with these boards on the set. I was like, nah, I'm done with it. And then the second thing is just the structure, the rhythm of it. I like the one thing about spoken word that I like is I change my flow so much. I'm going fast and slow, and you know what I mean? Whereas with rap, it's just, you have to, it's constrictive. Yes. So I was like, I used to rap, and then I started rapping without the beat when I was sitting at home, and then one or two people were like, you know, you should really get into the spoken word, and I started listening to Emma Kerwin and stuff like that, and I was like, right, here we go, let's give this a shot. And it just kind of naturally progressed, developed. Yes. And then the
structures kind of emerge, it seems like they emerge from one like a stanza to the next, or one piece to the next. Like they can actually have sort of, they don't have to be linked in a weird way. The rhythm or the rhyming scheme or anything. They're like these little sections that can live on their own in a weird way.
It's just your own voice and what you can do with it. And there's no such thing as a boundary, like, you know. And that was I'm so adamant about that. Like, you can teach someone how to write, but there's certain elements that you just can't teach. There's certain levels of just understanding how free-flowing spoken word is that you can't teach to someone, because at the end of the day there is an element of spoken word where you make up your own rhythm. Yes. And how can you teach someone to make
it's an intuition that you have to kind of build from I think from consuming the art in a way, but you find your own rhythm in a weird way, I suppose, because language has a flow. Like everything, like even the speaking has a kind of rhythm, has ups and downs. So it's very sort of in line with just natural speech, except just kind of turned up a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's elements of it that you can't do. That's one of the things that I love about spoken word and poetry. It's such an underappreciated art form, I think. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's something that it's so powerful and it's so limitless.
Yes.
And like people get daunted by the fact that you just have a voice and nothing else. I think Luke Kirk said that to me once. He was like, it's different for the music and the poetry, because when I'm with the music, if I can't figure out what to say, the rhythm takes over. And I was like, yeah, that's very true. But when you're in spoken word, you don't have any of that.
Yes.
So your voice is almost.
And it's yes, exactly. There's no sometimes you have backup music, but it is just your voice, and then moments of pause, let's say. And when you're, it's so interesting because I think you mentioned this in the previous podcast about poetry being personal. Like it's the most personal, let's say, with words, right? So it was something similar to this, and I was thinking, okay, is it so? Because you were saying melody, sometimes you can hide behind melody, you can hide behind like let's say that the musical side of things, whereas the other one's more raw. But then it's like, okay, what's even more like but then you could say, oh, you're hiding behind rhythm, let's say, or maybe you're hiding behind rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started thinking about this more, I was like, okay, let's say you're sad, right? Why don't let's just say, why don't you say I'm sad, right? Is that the most purest form? Then I was thinking maybe not.
No, that's not. That's just telling someone how you feel. The purest form is making someone, not necessarily making someone feel that, but making someone understand how you feel at that point. So just saying it isn't enough, you know. The thing about music is once again I feel is a melody that you can resonate with, that will make you feel a specific way, but to do that with solely words, I don't think a rhythm in spoken word can make you feel sad. I think it's the words that you use.
Interesting. A rhythm can't make you feel sad. That is actually that feels pretty true. There's no real the thing that music really relies on, but there is repetition like in your stuff.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean. There's not, they're kind of choruses. I wouldn't the concept of a chorus is just a part that repeats, let's say, right? But you do use repetition in a weird way. You know what I mean? As in the mala off your, or the bouncing words off your mouth. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Yeah. But you say that twice in a weird way. But I think repetition is great, especially it's even more powerful in, let's say, poetry or spoken word, because it's just words and it hits harder the second time or something.
I don't really know how to describe it. It just hits in a different way.
Yes.
Or maybe it's hard to say one is better than the other, but I think it just hits in this really like, I think there's just something different when someone's voice just says it, as opposed to like a melody or a rhythm. And the one thing that you will notice saying like spoken word, and I notice it, that when somebody's really getting to the heart and the meat of a story, and they're really telling you about how they feel, they don't have this much of a rhythm. It's like, there's like pauses, a lot more breaks. When somebody says something sad, it's just like, you hear the kind of quietness almost. I don't know how to. So like when I done the last show, it was about a friend of mine who died, and I remember that it's really like free flowing, and it's really going, and then I talk about it, and when I talk about it, it's just like, boom. You say the lines, like, then this happened, boom.
Everything drops out.
Everything dropped, and you watch the eyes, and the eyes are just like, fuck, right. So the part that means the most often is accompanied by silence.
Yes.
Do you know?
Because the silence is the tension.
Exactly.
In a way.
Yes.
Like
yes.
it's the tension that we all want. It's in music. We want the tension to be resolved.
Yeah.
Like if I go do re mi fa sol la ti, we want to go to do. We need that resolution.
Exactly.
In a weird way.
And when I was doing that show, it was just like I was talking about death, and I was like, the truth is, when it comes to death, it's final, and then just stopped, and that means it's final.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So it's like. That within itself is almost.
I love this. I was listening to a poem. It was just in the bleak midwinter. Right, it's one of these typical poems. But when the words kind of mirror the kind of what you're trying to say. So like snow, like I think the line was snow on snow on snow. Because it's like the words are stacking up.
Yeah.
Like the snow on snow on snow.
Almost onomatopoeic.
Yes, exactly. But it is what it is. Like in a weird way. Like the final thing, it's hard. This why poetry is so powerful, because it speaks to stuff that you can't really articulate.
Exactly.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it.
And like there are elements that you can try and write in poem that come out in poetry that you can try to write, and you will never be able to do it, and then sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just there, and it's really hard to describe. It's like a stream of consciousness that you can only tap into at a particular time, and it's really, really fucking powerful.
Yes, and the one thing that when I look at poetry and I see what gives me the sort of that awe feeling more than anything is just the amount of content. So like, let's say my songs, right? I could get away. A chorus repeats, right, 3 times, let's say, or twice. Pre-choruses can also repeat. So there are bits I can just they're grand, and then the verse, and then the melodies are kind of the words can be real drawn out, like and instead of like and it's just like hard. I'm just thinking, oh my god, that would take me years. Not years, but it would take me way longer to write.
Yeah, it's like it's a weird way of, I don't know. I think everybody in spoken word has their own way of learning it. For me, it's like literally just sitting and drilling it. Sitting and drilling it. And like, I look at myself in the mirror and I do it. I have it on, I voice record it, so when I'm walking to work every day, I have it on my ears, and like, it's just this, absolute obsession. It's a really big obsession that gets me to learn off the words. Like.
So hold on. But how do you, so this is when you create a piece of work, right? Let's say, because you don't want to waste your time, or let's say, you've only so much time, right? So how do you have an intuition for a piece that is worth the time to learn?
No
or
idea.
not? You don't, so you
No
have to
idea.
commit.
There's sometimes I'll write poems and I'll actually just know the lyrics, and I don't know how. Like, it's not a thing of like, it's like not that I'll know the whole poem, but it's like there's just certain words that I'll just remember.
Yes.
And it'll help me almost just get to the next line, because there's so much of spoken word that is filler. So say an example, I'd be like, I remember where it started, flaked out in summer sunshine, letting the voice find the rhythm, 4 days born in trees, so the paper socks are little bubble. All right, and it's a lot, but all I need to remember is rhythm, little,
Yes.
you know, and that gets me to it. It's hard to describe. Like.
So someone described this the other day. I thought it was brilliant because it was really good underway. So music, I've always thought of music. Well, I not always thought, but I'm always thinking about what is music, why does it exist. But same with spoken word or whatever. It's a memory system in a weird way, right? And I think, do you know the way like a certain smell will trigger a memory, right? Mm-hmm. So different, if you can, and then if you learn things in loads of different ways, it's easier to remember. So if you learn music theory, if you learn the different scales by like their letter name or their number name, you're learning it in multiple different ways, right? So with words, right? If I say a sentence, right, that's one, like the words are one thing you can remember, right? But if I say it with a rhythm, then you're remembering, okay, the words plus the rhythm give you that memory system.
Okay,
but
yeah.
then you add in a rhyme. So now there's 3 different layers of memory in a weird way.
Yeah.
And so that actually, the fact that we rhyme things, it's because I always thought, because it's basically like breadcrumbs in a weird way. Like rhyming is like you're leading to the next breadcrumb because it has to kind of match up with this particular rhyming scheme. And I think, obviously for the oral tradition, that must have been something that's why it feels so good when a rhyme resolves.
Yeah.
What is that like?
It's just like
it just feels good.
It's the idea of like you started off with nothing, and this is all your work, and it's like every line is an achievement almost. You know what I mean? Like it's just giving you that little win to have a big win.
Yeah.
I don't think there is anything actually negative about creating.
Yeah.
You think about it. I don't think there is a way that can. Like, even when it makes you feel bad, it makes you feel good because it makes you feel stuff that you wouldn't have felt before.
Out of you, yes.
You know? I don't think there's anything negative about it.
Yes, putting pen to paper or...
strumming a guitar,
whatever
painting on a canvas, whatever. Like, there is not one
bringing
negative
something
element.
forth into the universe that didn't exist before. And I think with your written stuff then, what with a piece like, let's say, the inner city vocab, what would be the process? What was like? So you maybe take us, if you can, from like the birth of that idea to the process to actually get it done to then the video. Like what is that? What does that whole journey look like in whatever way that you can put?
I'm trying to think where I wrote it now.
What do you mean?
No, I'm trying to think where I wrote it.
Oh,
what do you mean? No, I wrote it. See, I write a load, I write like a little bit of it, then I leave it and I come back to it. I try to write every day, right? So when I'm trying to think, I think I probably would have started somewhere in my house, but the idea of just writing to me is just whatever I'm feeling at the time. So there might be a time that I'm listening to a song and I'm like, oh, this fella thinks he's deadly, so I want to think I'm deadly, and I kind of want to inspire myself off that. There's other times that I'm walking down the street and I get really introspective and I start writing. There's times that I just write because I'm frustrated, and I can actually see different patterns emerge from what I create depending on how I feel. So there's like, say, spoken word, for example. That's often written when I feel good about myself, when I feel like angry, when it's passionate, when it's there, when it's like this fiery emotion, right? And then when I get more introspective, you can almost see that kind of reflect in my writing, because the words are a little bit more poignant. They're almost poetry as opposed to spoken word. So that poem was written probably in a time where I was like, oh, I want to feel up, I want to buzz. Then I'd go to like I said, I'd go to open mics and I'd just start performing bits here, I'd start performing bits there. Here's a version that I wrote the other day. Now I'll come back 3 months later on, here's the second version of it. Yeah. See people's reactions. And then whenever I'm happy about it, like you get a sense of when you know that something's going to be well received. And like the thing with Inner City Vocab, for example, that was the reason why I wanted to put that out, was because I was like, I want poetry to be more accessible. I don't want poetry to be this highbrow art form where people are clicking their fingers. And I say it towards the end. Poetry can be
it mirrors exactly what you wanted to do.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like, but like even with art, like I look at stuff and I'm like, this is just art. Like I walk out the street, I see someone like pissing on a wall and someone walking their dog and they stop and have a look. I'm like, that's art. Do you know what I mean? Everything can be art. It doesn't have to be these massive moments in life and two roads diverge.
Like fucking
it can be like, there's a geezer getting into a taxi, look at him, the head on him, like so that's
that moment of art. Because if you were to write you could fill a book with a 2-second moment if you just filled in every single detail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like when I was going to Tallaght on a bus yesterday, I was on a 27 and there was a part where I was going past a little and I saw this massive like loads of hills with the snow on them. And I was like, this is God. I can't believe that this is Dublin almost. Like, do you know what I mean? This is so cinematic almost. Like, right? And then like I'm looking around, I look down, there's some board with a fucking silk hook hanging out of our mouth, pushing a trolley in our pajamas because it's 10:30. Yeah. The duality of life, do you know? Yes. And I was like, this is art. Well, if I could paint this picture now, it would be art.
It's just that juxtaposition between these two concepts for you, obviously, as well.
I love it. So when it came to then releasing it, that's why I wanted to release it. Do you know what I mean? It's very much what I want to do when I want to do it, I suppose.
But with that then, so how long has that been sort of been developed in a way? That poem.
Oh, I'd say it's gone on 1.5 2 years now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Jesus, and then so what you're seeing there is sort of the season finale of that piece.
Yeah, almost. Or it could even get better. Like, it could, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Like so with the video, like, because I don't know if you've done other videos like that before, but what struck me was just it was done in like it was one shot.
Yeah.
One shot. What was that like? Is there bloopers from this thing? Like,
there's always.
Yeah.
Actually, there wasn't that many. I think we done about 6-7 takes in total.
Okay.
Right. So we done.
We obviously had it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I knew what to go for, and like also the thing is like Julie O'Briain who recorded a shout out Pizza Egg on Instagram.
Pizza Egg.
Yeah, she's a legend, and I know her for so long that we kind of already had this. Almost like bond and relationship, so there's not that awkwardness. It's just like, let's go for it.
Because you're so it's a great. Anyway, keep going.
Well, I was sitting down in the gaff one of the nights, and I was like, can I curse and all on this or what?
Do whatever you need.
Oh, so I was mad stoned. I was sitting down, I was really bait.
Mad stoned. That's not man.
I was watching.
Babies.
I was watching Peep Show on the telly. And I was like, I looked at that and I was like, this is genius. Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah, Peep Show,
I'm like, this is actually, the concept of this is actually genius. You can never do this again. Like, the one person perspective, the narrative, the kind of narrating your own mind. And I'm like, this is a style that can never be recreated. And I was like, I don't want to recreate Peep Show, but I was like, I have gotten so much inspiration from that show. Yes. As silly as it is. Like, there's so much that I learned from it, like Alan Johnson and his intensity, like the idea of super hands just always coming out with these bangers, the way that it's shot, the narration. I was like, I want to almost like do something similar to this. So then I was like, what about if we make the whole idea of the poem is making poetry accessible? Why doesn't the video just be accessible? Why does it have to be this like scenes and cuts and like why can't it just be like, actually, here you go, just like a normal conversation, there we go, we're in and we're out. And it was deadly, and the way that it was shot was just that one take. It starts off kind of in the middle as opposed to do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this.
Exactly. So come here anyway, and you're just like, within 2 seconds where you are, what the scene is, where the background is, that someone's just having a chat to you.
Yes.
I love it, and I'll be doing another video. I hope to get it out. I hope to get it out maybe June or July, and that's going to be a completely different thing. Where, because it's not me having a conversation, it's me talking about Dublin and about a lot to do with the. I don't want to say too much, but just
but keep it on. Yeah. So what I liked, there's a lot that I like in this video, but I don't know if you know. There was this poet I seen the other week at the Cirque sessions, and I seen him there at Smithfield. His name could be Ross or something.
Ross McCarrick.
Is it? Where he basically at the circle sessions, I didn't know where he was beginning or ending. It was like he was just the way he did his poetry. He'd be kind of.
I need to see him.
His intro. It could have been him anyway. I'm pretty sure, but it was kind of like it was real trippy because as he was talking, then it's like, is this part of the poem or is it not? Because it all kind of, you didn't know when to clap.
And it's needed, like it is needed.
Yeah.
Because it's not, there's nothing wrong with it, but you know, like get the idea, getting up, doing your poem, getting your applause going.
That's it. Yeah, it was like but it was interesting that it was just like this. It was a different way of interpreting the performance, and when I seen your video, I thought because the transition into it's like, where does it begin, where does it end? You know what I mean? Because it's such. Because you could say it starts after you say, come here, I'm thinking about doing this video. Or is it, like, so that's when there's kind of this ambiguity, let's say, between the beginning and end, and then the end, and I'm just going to go for a whip. Like, it is all the same thing, but it's kind of blended in this really cool way.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really liked was just your mannerisms. Like, I was so impressed with, like, just the way you were just doing the show, like, pulling up your sleeves, and you're like, I'm not fucking 7, and then you sit down, and you're late. It was like a really good acting performance, I thought. And you've never done any acting before. You've obviously acted
a little bit short movies and stuff, but like everybody used to always say to me to do acting, right? And it's something that I always have wanted to do, and it's something that I definitely will do more.
Well, you did do it.
Exactly, but I want to get into it. Like I'd love to get into it. And
you'd be fucking brilliant.
It's something that I will do, but it's just something that I don't want to do just yet. You know what I mean? And I've gotten into it. I've gotten into a stage when I'm maybe like 27, 28. I'll do it, and if something comes of it, it comes of it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like I think that there is always like I just think I've practiced being a performer for so long now that obviously you learn some tricks of the trade, you know. For example, like,
you're not just getting off the couch and being an actor.
Exactly. When I was like doing 2017, I remember doing photo shoots where I was like this, you know, and then I was taught, you know, maybe think of a nice time and walk down the street. Or when I was doing videos, I'd have people turn around like, you're too rigid here. Like almost just imagine the camera isn't there. Look just to the right or the left. You can pick up these little things, you know. So to say I have no experience.
Just on this point, because I love just like so there was this video of Michael Caine, and it was just a little quick one on acting, and he was like, when you're looking at somebody, right, you pick an eye, right, because if you're always changing eye on the camera, you can see it, right, but then he does this really good thing, and don't blink when you're speaking. If you blink too much, you don't look that powerful, but if you look, and I can't enough, but if you don't blink. You don't blink that much, but you listen more because they don't blink. You know what I mean?
It's a weird.
And the way he does it, he doesn't blink for like age, and it's like the longer I don't blink, the more you look, and you're just like, oh my god, it actually builds up the tension in a way. So these little you know, not that I'm gonna be, but it's good to understand these. Oh, there's these methodologies or these techniques you can actually apply to the craft. Exactly, because you just think, acting is like this big thing, or music is this thing, or poetry, but there are elements, learnable parts of the trade, let's say, that are just little things to have in your back pocket to know what to do.
Exactly.
Like in a podcast, like, just don't be drifting over here when you're trying to speak. Like, if you're here, you get 90% of the good value or whatever.
It's like I see a lot of people. One of the things that I see a lot of people do when they're recording or when they're speaking, when they're doing spoken word, not necessarily a poem now, a show, right? Is that they're very grand with the gestures, and it's like sometimes you need to just not. Sometimes, like, what really helps me is I sit there and I'm like, I'm gonna imagine now that I'm just sitting here with you, and there's none of this is here, all right? And then I put myself into these different scenarios. So like I'd be like, what if you said something that was funny, and I laugh at it? What if you said something that really pissed me off? How would I act? What way would my face go? Like, so you said something funny, there's a lightness on my face. It's like an element of ease. If you said something annoying me, I'm not actually gonna blink because I'm gonna want you to look at me. And you know what I mean? And like, so like I'd be sitting at home getting ready for a gig. And I'd be like, right, so these are the moments that I need to actually think about.
These emotional states. Yes.
So like the last shot I done was about, like I said, somebody passing away in my life, right? And I was like, so I will imagine at this particular point when I wanted to say in that I'm just talking to one person. And so then what am I feeling? I'm not feeling anger towards them. I'm feeling anger inside, but I'm actually kind of thinking of projecting it towards them, because that's what happens when you're in that stage, you know? And then when I'm on stage and I'll be like, death is final. And I might look at someone and I might go like this, or I might just a little thing like flick my tongue out or something like that.
Because you're channeling that emotional state, and it's being mirrored in your physiology.
I'm looking at someone and I'm saying, I'm imagining now that I'm just saying this to you. And that's why like I fail at gigs when I can't look at someone in the face.
Oh.
Like it's really hard for me to do.
It's just with a flashlight.
but I need to have that one. I need to have that one or two people that I can see your face and I will look at it and I will make you feel uncomfortable because I want you to feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'd love to understand more methods and stuff like that.
Loads of the little tools of the trade, but it's just so interesting that there is that layer to it as well, because I remember at the circle sessions I did, because I wanted to do all of the arts, right? So I had a poem that I wrote for this, it's always for a girl, but I just wanted to read a poem on stage, right? So I was just like, I'm just going to do it at the circle sessions because I've never done a poem before, right?
Yeah.
It's not, but it's like more like when you read it, it doesn't have the same like sort of like performative element. The structures are pretty, the structures are the same, but when I was reading it, it felt like, I was worried that it looked like I was taking the piss out of poets, right? Because I was trying to find my performative way of doing a poem. Mm-hmm. So whatever I was doing, I was trying to figure it out in a way. But I was too. Now that when you mention that, it's like there's another layer to it. What is your emotional state during this time of the piece?
Yeah,
and that
big
adds
time.
so much to it.
Big time.
Just with that context.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Massively. And that's why I always do that. And that's why, like, writing for me, like what I said, the obsession that I have with it is so positive and it's so negative because it will make me feel, and I have no control over it. And, like, I have really gone through stages when I'm writing for shows that, like, my mental health is really low because it's almost like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got, say, like 2 weeks. When I was writing that show, once again, just for December, because it was such an emotionally challenging thing, I said to myself, I'm going to start writing this in September. I'm going to have it finished by November. I'm going to give myself a break and then I'm going to rehearse it. And there were elements where it was like, I woke up and I was like, I have to get back on this now, but I don't know if I'm actually able to get back on this. And I noticed that I was drinking a lot more, smoking a lot, eating a lot of shit food. I wasn't sleeping too well, and it was because it was bringing stuff back up from maybe 10, 11 years ago. Not even necessarily events, but just the kind of brought me back to being a kid, and I didn't really like myself as a kid, and I just didn't really, not that I had a bad childhood, like a fucking family that loved me and all that sort of stuff, but it was just, I just didn't like myself. Yes. And I almost felt like I was that person again. And it was really, but like that's just you have to. You have to. I don't know why, but I just have to.
Interesting. So wait, just on the writing practice, because how do you capture your inspiration? Like, are you writing it down? Are you using an app or?
No, just what I remember reading.
What? Oh well, that's actually a good metric. Because what you remember is what's the most energizing.
Yes, but I'll walk outside. So this has happened before. Actually, Jeff laughed at me once about it. We were all together, and he was like, "You look at a tree and it'll inspire you." And I was like, "Yes, because how long is that tree been there, and when it's just depending on when I am, right?"
Yeah.
But if I was to walk it and it's pissing rain, and I walked out and I looked at that tree outside, and I was like, "I want to write about the tree." I will stop. I will write something, and then I'll keep walking because you have the one line and you have the memory there, and you can come back to it. Yes. So you don't need to write a full poem the whole time.
No, but that's what I mean. Capturing. Mm-hmm. So you capture the seeds.
Exactly.
Rick Rubin talked about this in his book. Just like these are little seeds. So like you would write something, like just something down. Like,
exactly.
Sometimes.
And then you come back and you explore.
And then you go like, what's the harvest going to look like if I go down this path or whatever. So, but then you've nothing digital then. It's all written.
No, well, I type and write. I do both, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I would have it in like a notes folder or a notepad or like.
Interesting. And with your writing practice, how do you try to write as much as you can, just because you know that's beneficial to the art,
because like I don't write everything to be performed.
Yes.
I write some things I've written that I will never show anybody because I don't want to. It's just my own thing, like, you know. There's other things that I will show people, but writing for me is just very much as you can.
Yes.
Like I try to write every day, and I would note, like, one thing that I notice is people that I turn around like, when do you actually write? It's like during my own time, when I'm walking to work, when I'm leaving from work, or when I'm up at night and say I'm in the house on my own or whatever after I've just had dinner, or come at any time. I can't sit down and make myself write at all.
Yes.
And that's probably it's just like I just do it when I want to do it, and like it's almost like I feel something. I'm very spiritual and I don't know what it is, but it's like I'm feeling something here that I need to put this down, like, you know. It's a complete coping mechanism for me.
Okay.
Complete. Like if I woke up tomorrow and you turned around to me and you're like, you can never perform again, it'd be really bad for me. But I'm like, oh, that's annoying. If I woke up tomorrow and someone was like, you can't write ever again, like I just don't think I'd be able to function. Because I'd end up being so close-minded.
Yes.
It
It'll
really
just shut off a part of you that will just be detrimental.
Yeah, when I'm writing, I realise stuff. I'll be like, oh my god, this makes so this is a whole new perspective on my life.
Yeah.
Gates open or whatever. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't. One of the things, like I remember me talking before this podcast started. One of the things that writing has really helped me do is take into account how other people feel about situations.
Yes.
Because I'll be sitting there and I'm like, well, this is how I felt. But actually, like, not even in terms of a poem. Like, say if I have an argument with a friend, I'll write down what happened in the argument, what started the argument, almost like an essay. And then I'll read it again and I'll be like, do you know what? Well, actually, here's what I said that went wrong. And here's what I said that went right. And here's what I done wrong. And,
yes. Because it gives that objectivity in a way.
Yes.
Because it's on the paper now.
Yeah.
And so it's like different. It's not you anymore in a weird way. So exactly. It's that separation. And so you can look at it from that view.
It's like a complete honesty.
Yes.
And it really helps me.
Free of all the filters that are like that. We're looking at the lenses, let's say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, oh, hang on. When it's out here, what does it look like when it's outside of me? In a way.
And it's really hard because, like, obviously, I can't be in the middle of an argument with, say, one of my mates or something and be like, give me 10 minutes to write about this and I'll come back to you. But like, it's the only way that I can actually be honest with myself and calm myself down.
It's such a great sort of, especially for what you're doing, like to have a practice that you feel that you need to do, because some people don't feel as what writing could be. Now writing obviously is a chore sometimes, let's say, but the fact that you use it, it's like a tool for you to not just for your art, let's say, or to produce. It's like to give you that. It's just something that's part of your like psychology, just to write.
Exactly.
And that's like an extra benefit, because then the 100%. Art will improve from that in a way.
The art will improve, yeah, and then there's just elements of it that my life will improve.
Exactly, everything is improving.
And they work hand in hand, like the idea of characters and stuff I get, but like for me as an artist bounces off me as a person, which bounces off me as an artist. And I've sat down and I've said to myself, like, I'm actually going through a time right now where I'm like, I can't progress as an artist because I haven't progressed as a person. And I need to focus more on me as a human being.
Yes.
Understand more about myself so then I can write more, or understand more about some ways of life and then I'll write about it more. So like, I'm going through a stage now where I'm actually, it's really weird because I'm kind of always reminding myself, like I started doing like bits of teaching and I'm like reminding myself I don't actually know everything. I don't know half of what I think I know.
Yes.
You know, and I'm learning so much off other people, and it's really I'm not writing that much now because I'm just soaking up all this education and I'm just like learning about life and learning about everyone else's life experiences. And I think in a year or two when I actually start writing, I'll do one more show this year, and I think that'll be kind of like the end of a chapter now.
Yes.
And I think when I open the next chapter, it'll be a lot more on other people.
You're in the sort of consumption phase or whatever of like the creative art, perhaps. And
I'm really happy with who I am as a person to not want to create art. And I noticed that I want to actually see a lot of other people do better. And I've really kind of gotten into that over maybe the past year or two now. And it's something that I love. It's something that I never want to change. And the idea of... It's not even the idea of helping people out to say that I have helped people out. It's just like I've gotten what I've wanted out of art for now. I know that I'm going back to it, but it's like what I wrote a poem and it's keep reaching above the clouds, and when you get to the place that you want to be, raise the hand or lower the hand down to get other people with you know. And like I'm at that stage now. Let's go. Let's go.
I figured it out. Like this is what you could do.
If I'm sitting and I'm very happy with who I am, but what's the point of me sitting here alone? Let's get
laughing at the people down there.
See you.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. And we're all at different. Like there's always. And then there's people up there that hopefully are going to reach a hand down. Like, we're always on some sort of ladder or hierarchical structure. 100%. And we're all moving, and we can always, even... Because someone who's taken... you might have taken 10 steps, and someone might be taking their first step.
Exactly.
And you have something to offer sort of everyone in a way. And then that... I just think it just makes the world that you're in better. And it just... I feel that it's such an easy, because we're a big part for me. The biggest driver is just like that we're all gonna die, right? So I think once you internalize that really and get to the depths of it, and I don't think you can ever really get as deep. Well, I feel like I've gotten as close to, and a feeling of that, because that's very energizing, because it's the sad poignance that gives life, and it means everything is like, the fact, right, that, like, imagine you're in a room with all these people you're performing, and in 1,000 years, that's all gone. Everything's gone. And that makes that moment, and it makes every single fucking moment so
much special.
So much more special, right?
Yeah.
And that means that instead of not, by reaching down your hand in a moment, let's say, you're making that moment grander than what it could have been, because you'll never, that's gone then. That chance to help or make it better is now gone forever.
It's like life is for me, like, it's interesting to hear that, because I actually looked at it kind of in a similar way, but also in the opposite way, because I was like, life is so full, like, in a sense, right? And you live for so long, because you're living every moment of a day. So why not just spend 5 minutes to just do something with somebody, you know? Give someone 10 minutes of your time, because people give me 10 minutes of my time, you know? I remember when I started off, I had no money, I had nothing, like, you know, I was literally just going to open mics, and there were people that put money into my work, and put time into my work, and put effort into telling me. And I had some of my biggest inspirations, not only in a financial way, but in a moral way, help me out and really lift me up. So now I'm sitting here, I'm a 24-year-old lad, 25 now, living a life where I'm making money from a day job, and I'm making money from my art. So when I make money from my art, I put it to the side, and when I make money from a day job, I put it to the side. What's €200 or €100 or €50? If somebody else is needing that for a book or for a gig, just there you go. What's it to me in 2 years' time? Do you know what I mean? If it's something that I have, then it's something that I'll give, because I know that you will give that to somebody else.
Interesting.
We have to teach people how to work like this, I think, because I was taught from my favourite people. Like, life is so full, and you're 25. So by the time you're 30, it's almost going to feel like a lifetime within itself.
100%.
You know? And you just pass it down the chain. Not even down the chain, just pass it along the chain.
Yes, keeping it, that baton of kindness that was given to you.
Exactly.
Not just going, thanks lads, like, I got the baton now, and then, oh, you want the baton? Like, and not giving it. So the fact that it's because people, you could see the kindness, let's say, that was bestowed on you, and you're like, why me? Like, it's like, oh, there's people are just being nice to me. What's going on? And then it's the same it's same with art, in a way, like art that inspires you. I think, like, a part of me, I love the music that resonates with me. I want to try and elicit that feeling with what I'm actually doing. So then the fact that being nice to people is just, it's like passing on them feelings of niceness that were bestowed upon you.
But emotions do not belong. It's poetic to say, I'm going to sound cheesy, but emotions
You're a fucking poet, come on!
They don't belong to us, they just belong to life. We aren't actually in possession of emotions, because we can't control them, and they're always temporary. Emotions are owned by life, so why are you feeling like it's yours to have? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can experience it, but so can everyone else. So make sure that somebody experiences the best part. Make sure that the high that you feel, somebody else is feeling. And I have seen it. Like, I've really seen people turn around to me, and it's one of the best things ever. I always say that when you look at an artist, and you look at somebody who, I'm starting to see it now because I've been 6 years doing art. Someone who has just come in, and they just, from the first day, do you know what I mean, to now, and they started off in an open mic, and now they're running gigs and stuff like this. It's like watching a flower just blossom open, and you've seen it blossom. And it's a feeling indescribable. Not because it makes me feel good because I done something for it.
You witnessed it.
Yes, it makes me feel good because I am watching somebody become a person that they thought they...
And you understand the story at a deep fundamental level.
You know, they never thought they could get to here. Now there you go.
That's
insane. And it's like everybody is just experiencing happiness. Like, art is such a privilege that we have, because some people can want to do it for so long and they won't ever be able to, you know, for whatever reason, be it a confidence thing, be it whatever. So if you're able to experience this lifestyle, just be so grateful.
Yes.
You know, and pass it. Like.
Exactly. Keep the fires burning away. If you have any inclination to create and you're able to create in a public way, that is beautiful, because there are people out there that feel perhaps like the part of this podcast, a part of all that we do, it's like trying to give a voice to yourself in this world, and it's like a part of it is probably survival. Like a part of me feels like this is everything that I do now is like writing. Well, I have so many names, but I'm just gonna go with Basil for now. But it's like Basil was here. It's like I'm etching on the universe. Like, cause like there's no. I think of all the people that have just come and passed. It's like this is our chance to just scribble into the universe. Say I was here. How was it? Like it was great. You know what I mean?
I can't wait. The one thing that I want to hear is somebody turn around and say, you know, like I started art because of you. I think it could be the biggest compliment because I was fortunate enough to be able to say that to people who inspired me.
Yes.
But then as soon as I hear someone say that, I'll know that I pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's really what we're all about.
Well, it's interesting because I remember you were posting loads of poems, right? And I was at a place where I couldn't really write. That I wasn't like I was like, this lad is so prolific. And I actually wrote a poem like about like what is it like to always write, like what, and then like to just be free of the burden of because I think you can just start writing now. What stopped me from writing now? But there's like I think it's like a good quote I heard is like the fear of writing badly or whatever. But when I was in Galway for a bit, and I just started writing. I have little poems about like the bin man or like just being hungry, and all these little poems. I was just like, just write. Who cares? Yeah. And like the freedom of poetry is this is very like naive interpretation, but one thing is that okay, with song it's like I need a melody before I get going, but with poetry it's like the form kind of is created as you're writing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's all, you don't need this, like I think of music, you need a scaffold in a way before you start filling in the scaffold.
Okay.
Whereas poetry, it's like you're building the scaffold as you're going.
Yeah, it's deadly.
In a weird way. But
you can kind of do whatever you want with it, like.
Yes, exactly. And I just want to, just on this point, like, when I hear slam poetry, right? When I hear slam poetry, I'm like, oh, slam! What? Like, and I've seen poets, and I don't understand what that means. Like slam poetry.
Yeah, it's just I don't really understand exactly what it means, but I know that it's basically more of a competitive style of poetry, and there's rules to it. So you can't exceed 3 minutes of a performance.
Oh.
You're not allowed any props. You have to have it all memorized. It's just more of it's basically an end given to a competitive poetry competition.
Like, is it like battle raps?
Sort of, yes, sort of, but they're not on.
This poet isn't as good as me. How do you get
click for me?
Yeah.
No, you got 10. Just say 10 poets on a night. Every poet has their own poem that they can use, and it can be about anything in the world. Now, usually it does boil down to political narratives, just because they're the ones that get the most response. But it can literally be about a sausage sandwich that you had last week. Do you know what I mean? And you wouldn't necessarily reference anybody directly, but you just get up and you do your own, and you'd head off then.
Okay, so slam poetry. So there's a kind of rule set that stipulates what slam poetry is. It's not like it's not like, I don't know why slam. I suppose maybe It's just there's a few more rules, like a battle rap.
Exactly.
In
there's
the rap
rules
game.
and structures to it, like.
So then what? So have you partaken in slam poetry?
When I was younger, I did, just because I wanted to do as many gigs as possible and get on it. But it's not for me. Like it's not. People used to hate me for it because like I used to do, like, the rule is 3 minute poems, and then like I'd be doing it. I'm like, oh, well, I just want to do gigs, so I'd go up and do a 5.5 minute poem. They'd be like, oh, well, you're out. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Like, I remember Dave Hines said it to me once. Well, I went in for the Leinster Heat at the All Ireland Poetry Slam in 2017 or 2018, and I done a poem, and Dave Hines afterwards was like, we had to mark it out because it was too long. And he was like, why'd you do a poem that was too long? I was like, well, I don't understand why it has to be 3 minutes. And it was just, I never, like, I kind of took it seriously a couple of times, you know. And then I've done like one or two with We Are Griot, which is a collective of poets. I kind of just done that because it was crack. But like, I wouldn't, like, people take slam poetry very seriously.
Okay.
Some people are like devoted slam poets, you know,
Yeah.
especially in like America and stuff. It's fairly big. So like people would write specifically for a slam.
Yes.
I can't do that, like, you know.
Let's put too much context on it, maybe. Or
They put too much context on it. They'd write, like, I wouldn't be able, even little things. I couldn't sit here and be like, I'm gonna write a poem that's gonna be under 3 minutes now. Like, it'll wreck my head. And then there is like. It would wreck my head. And then there's certain things that, like, you know, you just see the same topics being brought up because you know that they score well.
Yes. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It's very like
Read the room.
Read the room, yeah.
You know, read the room. Like, I was in. I've seen it happen many times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now hold on, I actually need to take a piss, Right,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna pause it, right? And we'll be right back after these short messages. I don't want to get too into it, right? We're gonna bring it back.
Is that on?
Yeah, it's on. And we're back from the break, and we just were about to get into some of the. Oh my God, we haven't even got too far into the notes, but I do want to just get into the gigs and stuff, because for you, what was the point of, like, because obviously then you started doing all these open mics, you're trying to do as many gigs as you can, then suddenly you do a gig yourself at some point.
So when I started running gigs, it was very much bounced off open mic. So I wanted to create something that was essentially an open mic. But the one issue that I had about it was I just didn't want to. It's not that I wanted to do something better than an open mic. I just didn't want to do the same structure of an open mic, because I had gone to so many that I didn't want to just run another one, right?
Yeah.
So I used to run like basically a showcase night. So instead of it being a complete open mic, I'd go to open mics. I'd find people from open mics that I liked.
Yes.
And then I'd be like, yes, do you want to come and do this gig? And it was a very kind of natural thing. I actually started it way before I should have in retrospect, because I started performing, I think it was March or April of 2017. I was running gigs by June, and I just don't think I should have done it that quick, you know?
Yeah.
I wish I kind of gave myself just that little bit more time, but it was just very natural for me. Like, I always wanted to. I'm very obsessive. Like, I just have this addictive personality where it's like I can go to gigs 4 or 5 nights a week, and I'm not done now. I'm not done. I take it so seriously that I'm like, there's never a time that I won't want to hear a poem. There's never a time that I won't want. It just
get out.
I don't know how to explain. It doesn't happen for me. Like, even when I'm out on the street, I'll be like, yes, I want to read someone a poem now. Like Kate Tempest, they're one of the best spoken word artists, in my opinion, ever, right?
Yeah.
I was reading poetry to them on the middle of Vicar Street after they finished their gig in Vicar Street. Was waiting around. They walked out, and I was like, let me just give you a poem. Started recording.
What?
Yeah, it's on Instagram, man. It's on Instagram. And I said it to them
Guerrilla
after.
poetry.
It was straight though. It was like, let me just do it. And they were all about it. They were loving it. And then at the end of it, I turned around and was like, this is not the last time I'm going to meet you. And I will meet you again. Like, you know, I'm very like, so when it comes to it, I'm like, I want to hear any time. So when I started doing gigs, it was just to get more into it. And I think around that time as well, it's very lonely. In terms of like, I didn't, you know, the way you just realise stuff later on in life. So I realised kind of later on that I was lonely, and I wanted to get out of the life that I was living, because it was very negative on me. Like, I was looking for happiness through substances, as opposed to just.
That sounds like a movie. Happiness through substances.
No. It was like I didn't get the substance of life itself, though, you know, and like. So when I was doing it, it was like filling these voids in kind of such a positive way, because I met so many nice people through it, and I realized kind of how when I started as well in 2017, it was picking up. Like, spoken word was picking up, but it wasn't what it is now. Definitely, it wasn't what it is now. And like the first like 3 gigs that I was running, I had the like a Lewis Kenny and Colin Keegan and all come up performing. These lads are just like so well established in the scene, and they're kind of just coming to a local gig, and not a bother to them, and it kept giving me such high hopes and inspiration.
Yes.
And I've always been in a sense of like with gig organising, and especially for my own gigs, I'm always like, how big can I make this? And I'm so fearless and just being like, what's the worst gonna happen? They're gonna say no? Grand, say no. But like, the reception, it pushes you to keep going. Like,
interesting, because you've obviously must have gotten a decent following or whatever before you set foot into doing your first gig. You know what I mean? Like, people must have thought, oh, this Emmet guy is worth seeing, let's say. You must have built up a bit of clout. And then, because there had to be a point where you realised, I could put your name on the ticket, let's say. Yeah,
so that actually didn't happen for a while though. So what happened, like the first gig that I ever done was a gig called Vibrations, and that's when I think I did. It was me or Lewis Kenny, I think it was. Yeah. But that's just because it was the worst gig ever. But then after that, it was more facilitating gigs than doing my own show. So my own first proper headline show was my first ever book launch, and that was November of 2017. Wow. So that was that was nearly a year down the line, and that was like that was the first time I ever experienced a headline show. And Like it was amazing. We sold it out. I think I held like 70 or 80 people, and we sold it out. And it was like
Wow.
it was a feeling that I was like, I can't, like I went in. I was wearing like a suit, and I remember going into the toilet, and I remember like having a whiz, and I remember just sitting there and being like, "This is it now." You know, I was like, "This is one of the coolest things that I will ever." Yeah, man. I was like, "This is like one of the best things I will ever do. Let's do it and let's soak it in." You know.
Brilliant.
But I think at that time, I did have a following. But I had a following of friends. I didn't have a following of poetry lovers, and I knew that, right?
Yes.
And that was, in ways, an even better feeling because you're empowered by you were sitting in a room with 70, 80 people, and I'd say out of that, probably 50 of them are people that I call friends.
Yeah.
You know, friends that I had before poetry. And then after that, I guess just what I started doing headline shows was just knowing that people will come, I guess.
Yes.
Not all the time, but people. Even if it's 20 people in a room, like it's
that's still brilliant.
You know, yeah, 20 people in that have come down to watch you.
It's your thing.
So it depends. Like for me, I don't really fear the idea of no one coming. I don't know.
Interesting.
Because I don't see the idea of me putting my name on a bill to be like, right.
You've already won in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
you know
the thing, because I'm so like for this year, like I'm gonna try and do. Like my first gig, like as I'm talking to places, because I want to do in Scary. I think Scary's right here in my hometown. There's enough goodwill, you know. It's cool because, like, I'm starting to see this. Like the other day, I could hear someone like banging out one of my songs across the road. I open the door and he's like, "Yeah, the Basil," and then these little kids are like, "That's the lad that," because I wrote a song for my friend's wedding, and I was like, "That's the lad that wrote that song," and I'm just seeing like the world around me now because I'm pursuing this pursuit. People are like, I'm seeing a kindness, let's say, in my outer experience. And now I'm like, okay, how can I, most ideal situation, because I'd love to gig all the time as well. You know what I mean? I'm actually, I'm going to be streaming soon enough. So like, that's the, like my next evolution, because streaming is something that I like the idea of trying to like, I like the evolution of like improv, because people think, this cool quote, improv isn't improv, right? Because if real improv you thought was just random stuff, why don't you go to a keyboard and start tapping on it? Okay. You're actually, improv is you know what you're doing, but you're doing it in a spontaneous way.
Okay,
you know what I mean? So the structures are there in a way. So improv is that's why improv is something that you can actually get better at, because there are structures and templates, let's say, that you can use but like you're not using them in a conscious way, but they are there, so you can develop. It's something that you can develop. And I did do streaming years ago, but I had a really bad camera, and now I had really bad internet, so now I have all the stuff. So I'm going to go back into that world, because I think the most important thing for me is just I'm always learning more every time I sit down to sing, especially these days. I don't know what it is. It's like I've learned more about my voice in the last. I think it was because recording the album. I was listening to my voice. I was editing all the vocals, and like by the time I finished it, like the first vocal versus the last vocal, I'd internalized so much subconsciously from just listening, and now that's really starting to elevate and everything else. But I think for gig, even if I have to go down to the coast, right? Because I've got a number for someone or whatever. It's like, oh, you just go down and go in and talk to your man. And I was like, oh, I have to go down. It's just, what am I going to say? You know what I mean?
And it's like gig organising. One thing about gig organising that I've realised from limited experience of OIB experience is you need to have like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, because there's so many things that can just go wrong.
Oh, wow.
So you know what I mean? Like you can get a gig, you can get a venue. What happens if you go down to the venue and it's not set up the way that you want it? What happens if you go up and the sound engineer is a little bit off, or the sound, you know, there's like a million different...
Bring my speaker with me anyway.
But one of the worst feelings I ever have is like when I'm running a gig and it's like you're going in, you have to talk to say if you're organising it, you have to talk to all the acts, talk to sound engineer. You have to make sure that there's 6 different acts on one night. So that's going to be 6 different requirements. You have to remember them all. You have to give everyone equal amounts of respect in terms of talking to them and stuff. And it is very challenging in it. And I think there just has to be an element in your head that just switches on and can work kind of off the cuff a little bit.
Yes. You need to kind of go with the music in a way that's playing.
There's sometimes that you just need to let go. I see people that are like organising gigs, the gig's on, and they're like sweating and, you know, they're like almost fuming. They're
chairs in the thing.
yeah, storming in and out, and like, you know, and you can see that level of stress, and it's just not good. It doesn't look good. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't look good. And
if it doesn't look good, it probably isn't good.
Exactly. And I done it a lot. So like, I done it a lot when I started off, but now the only time that I'm ever like, right, what we doing is when we're backstage and nobody else can see it. I'll go have a little look, and then I'll come back. You know, and then like it's just the way that works. Like when I run gigs now, the only time that I really start stress is backstage when it's just me and Jeff, and I'll be like, oh man, and then someone will walk through the door and be like,
slaps you.
yeah, you know, but then someone else will walk through the door and I'm like, all right there, yeah, what do you need? Like, you know, it's hard, and like, yeah, it can be very meticulous. And
interesting.
Yeah, I can be a bit. I just like to make sure that I have everything.
All your ducks in a row. But for me, I'm just thinking, okay, for me, it's just putting myself out there in a way, because it's like all these things, right? Once you do them once, then you're like, okay, now what's the next thing in a way? Because the steps kind of emerge. So I know, I never went to any open mics in Dublin, so like that was last like September. I was like, I'm gonna start going to these open mics, and then I'm like, okay, then I got this thanks to Smithfield, like I did a showcase gig with them and Sinead, and then I got a good few people of my own people to come out. And now I'm thinking, okay, well now the next step, the next step of growth is like my own gig, and it just seems, it's just because I hate, a part of me hates asking people to do things. Like it's like, not like that, but like, even I'd be reluctant to just say, do you want to do this thing on a Saturday or whatever it is, just because I feel like I'm putting somebody out, and maybe that's a reflection of, I don't know.
I think that's maybe just overthinking it. Like, I don't know. You know, but I don't know what you'd be putting people out. Like, at the end of the day, you're doing an amazing thing, and the one thing to remind yourself is how, and I always remind myself of it, majority of people will want you to succeed.
Yes.
Everybody is with you. They're not against you.
Yes.
You know? So like Ned Dunn, shout out to Ned Dunn. He's holding a show on April 7th in Juneau. And he was like, you know, I just can't believe how many people have come together, and I can't believe the support that people are giving me and all. I'm like, yeah, but like, people want you to do well. Yes. You know, I want you to do well, and I will do whatever I can to help you. The idea that you're putting someone out is just purely in your own head.
Yes.
Whereas, like, if I ever heard anybody turn around to me and say, I'm trying to do a headline gig, what do you think I should do for blah, blah, blah? I'll give them the advice, and then, like, hopefully that push them to just go and
do it.
Because it's so scary, but it's just one of those things that, like, what are you going to lose?
Yes.
You know? If you don't do it, you're just going to be sitting here saying to yourself, I should have done it.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, just go for it.
You have to just do it.
Yeah, and you're going to fail.
Yes.
You know?
That's the thing. But you don't learn otherwise. And then you don't learn by not doing the thing. By just thinking about the thing, you're not going to figure out all the things that can go wrong in the gig, let's say. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you might think, I need to have my guitar tuned up. But what you really need to do was make sure the sound system was working, or make sure that there was actually a sound engineer, or there could be all these things that there's loads of things I'm not aware of. But until you do that first one, then you're like, all right, now I know this, now I know that, now I know I need to fucking make sure of this.
There was one gig that I remember really well that I'd done in Dublin, right? And the issue was that I'd done 2 gigs in Dublin on the 1 week. All right, so it was a stupid thing, but so we learned from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was kind of green. Remember the second gig, I'd say about 4 people came.
Yeah, because it's like we did already.
Yeah, exactly. It was in Workman's Vintage Room, and I say between 4 to 10 people came realistically, right? And I remember just sitting there and just being like, you know what? This isn't even that bad. Like, this is great crack.
That's my second gig.
You know, I'm like sitting here. No, it wasn't my second gig ever. This was like,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I was sitting there and I was like, John, there's 5 or 6 people here. Thanks very much for coming down. I'm actually having great crack. I've just let go of all this. Oh, what the fuck?
Yes.
Next gig is gonna be better, and then you just get up and you do it again.
Yes, because if you really just let go and realize, even if it's 3 people, it's like I'm gonna perform for these 3 people or whatever. Look, and that's brilliant.
What's the worst case scenario that's gonna happen for putting a bad gig? Nobody's gonna come. Sweet, you're gonna go home that night. You're gonna you might have a little cry.
Yeah.
Have something to eat. Go sleep. Tomorrow's a brand new day.
Pick yourself back up. But you won't learn by sitting on the sidelines.
Exactly, you won't learn by just. I love that mentality of just
getting stuck in.
Yeah, just do it, and you're gonna be wrong.
But you have this. I have as well. It's like just that ambition, like, in a way. I can see it in your eyes and your energy that it's just like And I seen it. I seen a few people. This guy Killer Cole, I noticed it because it's like the way he described it. It's like what was it? If a shark stopped moving, they die. So it's like there's always what's next, and it's like a kind of. I don't know if you've ever seen There Will Be Blood, Daniel Day-Lewis, but there's anyway.
Like the cowboy movie.
It's about oil and
No.
anyway. But he has this ruthless kind of ambition. It's one of my favorite films, but it took me a while to understand why. And it's because I'm always doing the next thing. I'm always looking for the next thing, even in what I'm like. The iterations are like I realize that I'm not even looking to be happy. I'm happy right now, actually, and I'm just gonna the way for me to enjoy life is to just always have something that I'm doing.
Exactly.
There's actually no. There's no end goal that will ever make me happy. The only thing that makes me happy is the process of actually. If I'm not doing the thing, then I'm not going to be happy. If I had let's say if I have something that if I get that, then I can stop. It's like, well, I can't actually ever stop.
It's
like,
never
for
been
me.
a destination, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like if someone when I started off doing poetry, I remember being like, all I want to do is just be like well known. I want to basically be famous. I want to make money off art.
Yeah.
And, like now I'm just sitting here, and I'm like, I wish I just would have went slower and just really because it's not about the bank balance and it's not about the getting your hand shook at the end of the night. It's about working, like it's about the process of working and what you've learned.
And the development of your character,
Exactly.
of your art, of your work. But also making it financially viable and having people come and watch you perform is like, that would be I'd love that because I love performing. So I'm like, if I can create situations in my life where that's kind of happens more, like that's obviously a positive thing. But then also with the money side, so because I'm a programmer, I have like that's always in my back pocket, and I'm still working. I'm only doing 2 days a week now, but I'm contracting. But I love that. I love programming as well and software development, and that's gonna make that'll mean sure I can keep supporting like money for albums, money for all this stuff or whatever. But it's like can it get to a stage, but does it need to get to a stage where it's financially viable if I can find that balance in a way?
For me anyway, I don't think I could, like, because if I made poetry financially viable, let's just say my living was off poetry, like I think number one, it would harm my interest towards it.
Yes.
Because I'd see it more as work. But also number two, what am I gonna be doing with my free time? Like, I need to.
Yeah, because you're gonna feel like I need to produce now.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe I need to produce in a particular narrative because that's what's more financially viable.
It's really hard to get into, and like I don't make that much money off poetry. Really, like I'd make like money off say like commissions or whatever. But like say for gigs, like Dublin's Finest, I don't make a penny off it. When I ran Vibrations, I didn't make money off that. Like when I do headline shows, I never get paid more than anyone else.
Yes.
Like it's just equally split down the middle. If I'm getting 100, you're getting 100 or 50 or 50, whatever. Like, you know, I think it's just a case of like the money will come and go.
Yes.
But not doing it for money. Like.
Yes, I think. But when I look at you and I see success, the thing I don't look at I'm like, oh, he has money and success. It's just like, oh, he's doing gigs. That's what success
exactly,
to me.
Yeah.
He's out there performing. He's out there. He's like becoming like you're like a bit of a figurehead, let's say, in the scene. Let's just say that's the case from my perspective. Then I'm like, oh, that's success, because then when he does a gig, he can get people together and we can make a fucking spectacle.
And that's where the payment comes in.
That's what the payment is.
And
like,
it is.
What's better than that?
I get like 50 quid. I get 50 quid off a gig. That'll get me a few points for a night out. But the idea of getting off a stage and having a group of people come up and saying like really resonated with your work, it's lovely. And even the idea of being seen as anyone in any such way that's known or like respected or anything like that, it makes me feel really happy because I feel like I've worked towards that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And to take pride and like it's back in that like it's okay to desire like validation for your work from others, because it's actually this is the problem with like tall poppy syndrome, like where we say, oh, like because if you stick your head up you get your head cut off, right? Or we begrudge people in a way. Whereas, like, because it's a reflection of where we're not in our life, let's say. That's one way to look at it. But I think we need to accept a part of us that does want, like, if my family's proud of me, I want my family to like what I'm doing in a way. Why wouldn't I want that? Why wouldn't I want my peers to respect what I'm doing? Because let's say I respect what your work is, right? Then I want, as me trying to impose my respect onto you, I want you to feel it. I don't want you to be like, oh, that's shit, I don't want that. Like, I noticed one person who was really good at taking compliments was KC. Because when I gave him a compliment, cause sometimes you deflect.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, it's, so like, I don't really deflect. I'm more I give myself a good pat on the back when I think I did well, and I give myself a good whip, right? So like, but I do appreciate when other people are saying it. But I'm like, in my head, I have this other scale where I'm like, even if I'm only getting like, if I think it went really well, and even if no one replied, I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, like you're the king of this shit, like you know what I mean? Yeah. But that's the final, like that's the final judge or whatever. But that being said, it is nice because when I give someone a compliment, I'm trying to impose what I felt onto them in a meaningful way, hopefully, as long as it's not like a little, I'm trying to win favour with them.
Exactly. No, it has to be genuine.
It has to be genuine, you know what I mean? And like sometimes you have to be always asking yourself, is this genuine, or am I getting swept away in the stardom of this person, or because I'm friends with this person, or whatever it may be. But I think being able to take compliment is a good thing in a way. And I suppose for you, because as you become like, you're like a folklore like thing, like in circle sessions, like, oh yeah, Eiméid Ó'Briain, he cut his teeth here or whatever, and he's doing a gig somewhere else. So like you hear your name like popping up in all these little places, so you're like this like mythical creature going around. So it must be hard then when, like, because people will just impose praise in a way, and then if you let that go to your head though, you're just going to become like, I don't know what you're going to become. How do you balance that?
Yeah.
How do you not get too big for your boots?
Yeah, it's a weird one, because I never really see it. Like, to be honest, like I don't know how to. I don't really see it. It's hard. It's hard. It's the idea of like people saying my name when I'm not there at a gig or something like that. It's not even something that I register.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, you'll never understand it.
Yeah, and I don't think I would want to, like, you know. I think like there's an element of me that is very very sure of himself, but that's only to not because of what people say, but because of what I know I do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like that helps me in turn to know what the genuine compliments are and what aren't. And I like, there's a lot of people that would say my name, but there's a lot of people that would say it in a fake name, or in a fake way, or in a negative way as well. Yes. And like, it's just an element of myself that I'm like, I'm not proud of what people tell me I should be proud of. I'm proud of what I did, and I'm proud of how much I worked, and damn right I'm getting respected because I've shown enough respect, and I've put the work in to gain that level.
Yes.
You know, so
like, so that's an interesting way of saying it, because for me it's like, some of the songs I've written, I believe in them already, so when people notice me, I'm just like, yeah, I know, about time, because I've felt this way already.
The circus sessions, say for example, the circus sessions would give me a shout out like, thank you very much. I was in that same in that place every Monday for 2 to 3 years, up until like maybe just before COVID lockdown or whatever. Jesus, you know what I mean? Christ. So like, in fairness, I earned the stripes. You know, like,
you're not just throwing out his name.
You know, and the amount that they have helped me, and the amount that I shout them out, and
it's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, it's almost like a friendship, and it's just this mutual level of respect, and that's what I like. But like, yeah, I take the good with the bad, and you move on with it, you know?
Is there any situation, well, I suppose we've touched on it already, sometimes you feel that, you know, sometimes the compliments are just, you know, they're see-through, they're hollow, they're not real or whatever, so there's this kind of, but yeah, there's this, it is a tricky beast.
It's frustrating. It becomes frustrating, and I think it becomes really, because there's times that like I've just chosen to go with it, and it kind of not works out in my favor, or it doesn't work out in my favor, and it's like it's very deflating. Like, it can become very deflating. There's people that I've met through in life, and also through gigs, that maybe have they would show you praise, but yeah, they also just act for themselves and do what they want to do, and like. When that happens, it can hurt, but sure, that's what happens.
It's funny because you've obviously you're so like, cause like, I mean, you have the credentials, like your CV is like 3 years in circus session, so you are like a veteran, let's say, or not even a veteran, because a veteran means that it's over, but you understand the scene, not because you are the scene. It's like, no, because you've lived it in a
Yeah.
way. You've lived the scene.
Yeah, I think if anyone spent 4, 5, 6 years doing something, they know what they're at. Like,
That's a PhD or whatever. You know what I mean?
You just know, like, you just understand how people work as well, and I think it's fairly, for me, it would be fairly, not in all cases, but in some cases, fairly obvious to see through things. You know, because it's like actions and words are two completely different things. You know what I mean? Say, for example, like how many people say they're for a scene, but can't stick around for a gig. Like, you know, how many people say they're for the scene? Well, what cut are you taking out of a gig? And these aren't things that I'm judging people by. I wouldn't judge them. Like,
but it's like let your words and your actions reflect each other at least.
And I respect people. I respect people who are as out straight as they can be about, like, this is what I'm getting out of it, because that's part of what it is. Like, you know. But I think after a while you can just. Yeah, you just see by the way that gigs are running, by people's attitudes, and it's a very small scene in Dublin. So, like, a lot of things would be like known fairly quick, or you know that there's bad eggs when there's bad eggs, and good eggs when there's good eggs.
It's so interesting because just on the scene and the size of the ecosystem. Because when I started this podcast, I was just using my friends, I'd say. And now that I started going to these off mics, I have all these zany characters, as I described, who I can now ask to come onto the podcast. And it's just, it's mind-blowing when you think, okay, so I think we put too much weight on, let's say, success in the mainstream or success out there, when you can actually have, there's amazing conversations and amazing people at your doorstep. It's just like, just because they're not on Joe Rogan or they're just on that, so many people are capable of good conversation and interesting conversation and have something to teach you if you just let them in a way. And with this podcast, this is in my way, it's like I'm getting loads out of this, right? For my own personal thing. But it's also cool to hopefully put a sort of spotlight on the ecosystem and be like, look at all these characters like we have, in a way.
And it's so contagious. And like what you said, like, mainstream success is obviously the goal for everyone, I suppose. But like, it's not to be all and end all. Like, you know, spend 4 hours of a week just say at an open mic. The bonds that you're gonna make. There's 52 weeks in a year, so whatever 4 times 52 is.
Exactly.
That's how many hours you're spending of a year with a group of people that can inspire you and you inspire them. That's more beautiful than.
This is the thing.
Anything.
That's a one to like your experiential experience of that moment, right? It's where I was still getting stoned, but you are like, that's what I mean. If you with mainstream, let's say, there's people that'll know you that you'll never know, or like whatever, but. With this, it's like you're scaling up, like the impact that you're having on the people, you're actually getting that back because they're right in front of you, or you're going to see them next week, or whatever, and you'll see their story. So it's like an interactive... it's
whopper.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But hold on, I just want to double check what time it is now, because I'm not really sure how far... Okay, I think we're just about like 2 hours, 20 minutes maybe?
4:15.
So... let me see where we can start landing this plane a little bit. So what are you thinking as your next things that you're going to do? Anne Corden will love that I said things. She's like, the thing with the thing and the yolk.
The yolk and the
I'm just, I say, anyway.
I've gotten really into the workshopping and teaching element side of things. So that's something that I think I want to explore more. There's a few projects that I can't talk about now because they're ongoing, but when there's like projects that we're doing with communities that's going to be out this year, where I led workshops and there were murals painted off after the workshops and the creations that the people made, which is very powerful. I don't know. I think I've kind of done what I've wanted to do.
Yes.
You know, and I think I'm very happy with continuing to do that. So I think I'm very happy with showing up to the gigs twice a week and just writing to write and gigging when I want to gig.
Yes.
And I'll keep going with the teaching, maybe go into acting. Yeah. But like I'm in a stage now also where like I want to change jobs just in general. I want to.
Yeah, it's just other stuff in your life. Yeah. It's not just like, there's so many facets to you, in a way.
I'm so happy with where I am as a performer. And I'm so happy with where I am in the scene. And it's just because of, like, it's been intense.
Yes.
It's been so intense. I feel like I'm at a break period now and a rest period now, although I'm continuing to work.
Yeah.
I just, like, I'd say I went to, like, 2-3 open mics a week every week for like 2 solid years. And like going there properly to the point of like now I go in and like I'll watch Smithfield Creatives. That's what, man. 10 o'clock will come around and I'm like, do you know what, lads? This is madness to me. I actually really want to start. There's one thing that I wanted to do. I want to start getting back to watching more open mics.
Ah, yes.
Because I don't really go to the like a circle sessions and Smithfield Creatives anymore. I think it's just because I'm doing a lot of work outside of those.
Do you feel like you have to perform if I go or something?
No, not like that at all. I think it's just a thing of like
is it hard to go back to, like, let's say you do gigs and stuff, to do an open mic performance?
I don't have any desire really anymore.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, because you've done that and you've done the next thing, so it's like, what can...
But there's sometimes I'll go, I'm kind of a bollocks for this now, I'd say, but there's sometimes I'll go to Smithfield Creators or circuit sessions and I won't put my name down, and then I'll listen to a couple of people and I'll be like, you know what, now I want to. Now I'll go up, like, you know, and it's just more of a person.
You see, in the moment, you're like, I do want to go, but before that, you're like, I'll just go and watch it.
I get a whiff of the community again, man. I get a whiff of just, like, looking at someone and really being like, and maybe I glamorize it too much, but I'm really sitting there and like, I really love you doing this, man, and I really love people getting up and being themselves. Love the warmth that brings, and
it's energizing.
That makes you want to get up. But like, to go to an open mic with the idea of having a set to perform or something like this, I don't think it would be for me. Not because I think I'm past it or at it. It's just because I think I have my energy focused elsewhere that is quite depleted when it comes to the idea of the open mics. And it's 8 o'clock at night now, and I've been writing earlier on in the day, or I've been teaching earlier on in the day. Now I just kind of want to listen.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very like people get this opinion of me, and I understand why, because of how out there I am with the performance, that I'm a very extroverted, like out there person. But I'm just like, I'm not really. And there's sometimes that I can feel, you feel kind of like a little bit like a monkey.
Monkey with you need to tell me.
You know these things, because it's like, it's like you're going through a gig. Oh, and I do the poem. Oh, and I do a poem.
Hey, do that thing again.
Yeah, or like, now you're teaching. Oh, go on, do a poem while you're there. Go on, you may as well.
What do you think about this, Evan?
Yeah, it's just...
Evan, come here, do that thing again.
Exactly. Like, John, I remember, like, John Cummins. He's one of my biggest inspirations. Like, I really, really love to do it as an artist. But he used to fascinate me when I started off in the scene, because when I started off, I was like, how could you not want it? Like, how could you not want to keep doing this? And I'd look at John, and John Cummins would come to the gigs, and and like, even up until lately, I'd be like, John, do you want to perform or whatever? And he'd be like, no, Maury. He'd be like, nah, I'm all good, I'm just listening, and not tonight, you know what I mean? And he'd be like, I'm just not really nice. And I'd be like, well, I wonder why. And now it's only like recently I've started to learn why, because he's just so happy to just not have to want it, because he's been doing it for so long now. You know, now it's time to just listen, and now it's time to gain that inspiration, because I definitely get inspired less now than I would have before.
Yes.
You know, when I started off poetry, it was just like,
because you're seeing, there was more that you hadn't seen before potentially.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? It was like just your world's expanding
every
like,
time you go.
Oh,
but now you're like, you've seen, so like, let's say there was an empty puzzle, and then you're filling in the puzzle.
Exactly.
The puzzles pieces are harder to find now to fill it.
Like, it's not just a spaghetti bolognese anymore. It's just where did the tomatoes come from? So, you know what I mean? Like, you're just so engrossed in it. But now I'm kind of sitting there, and I'm like, right, I'm looking for that inspiration. And one thing that really inspires me is the youth. And when I say the youth, I'm not talking about people younger than me. I'm talking about the new poets coming in. You know, the
12-year-olds.
Yeah, get into it. Get into it. There's a lad, Craig, his name is. I forget his Instagram name now, but he started writing poetry recently, and I can see him now wanting to, and he's texting me, and he's like, I'm trying to get a book out. Like, what can I do to get a book out? And I'm like, oh, well, like, you're only starting off. Maybe you should go to gigs, get one established. Then he's, oh yeah, deadly, yeah. What gigs are on? Do you know? And it's just like, people are just like,
give me more.
It's not even naive. It's just like, let me dive into whatever I can dive into. That pushes me. Like I said earlier on, like the first time that I met you, and you came off with an energy, and I was like, this is an energy that I'm soaking in.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at this and this drive and the hunger, it's like, soaking it in.
You mirror that in a way.
I remember, like, when I started off in the scene, although people were like really nice to me, I always felt like it was really constrictive. Like, I'd be like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. People were like, you know what? Maybe you should do this before this. Maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should try it a different way. And I'm like, no, I want to keep going. So when I see people do it now, I'm always very cautious in my mind to not use words like don't do this, or do you know what you should try instead. I'll be like, this is a class idea, man. And what so say example with the book, I'm like, you want to release a book, and let me know when you do get the book, like who would you sell it to? And they were like, oh, a couple of your mates. And it's like, how many of your mates do you reckon you have?
Yes.
So like, you're gonna get like 50 printed. Or you're probably gonna get 100 printed. Right, nice. So then probably like before you release the book, do you want to go to the gigs, get more people, get more following?
So let them discover
Exactly
what you've learned in a way, from
always
the thinking in a way, instead of saying no, do this, do that. Instead, like what you're doing there, it's more you're showing the thought process in a way.
Exactly.
You're leading them through it.
Yeah.
Because you know where to lead them, like to where, because you've already done it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I got really good advice from a fella called Rishti. Rishti is a poet down in Cork. Really nice bloke. I really love him. I got introduced to him through Jeff. And when I went down to Cork last, we went for
JJ? No,
Jeff.
JJF, I'm thinking. Oh, you're thinking
John J. Fisher.
Yeah, I met him the other night, actually.
But they're like of similar groups. And when
Okay.
I was doing a gig down there last December, I met up with Rishti and we were having a coffee, right? And I was talking to him just about like personal things in life. And I was like, I feel like because I fly off the handle really quick during arguments. So like when I'm arguing, it gets to a point where I'm like, I'm pushing away, and then it'll snap. And once I'm arguing, I'm like, now here we go.
Yeah.
He's getting advice, and he was just like, do you know, one of the main reasons why people are argumentative is simply down to the choice of wording. You can have the best intentions, but you just word it in the wrong way, and you're on such a defensive mind that you're just reacting.
Yes.
So he was like, one of the best ways to do this is when you feel like people are getting defensive or yourself is getting defensive. Don't make statements, just ask questions, right? So never make a statement. Don't be like, you are like this, I am like this.
Statements are like jabs.
Do you know? Just be like, you seem like you're a little bit annoyed, or why is it that you're annoyed? What's after bothering you? Have I said something that's bothering you? So transferring that into when people are looking to do gigs and stuff, it's like, even though you can have the great intentions by saying you should do this instead, and I get what you mean. So instead of releasing a book, you should go to gigs to get a name to release a book.
Yes.
It's the wording that you're using, right? It's constrictive there. It's like, here's something else. Here's what you should do, right? And that can like trigger in someone's mind, especially when they're a person of my nature that gets quite defensive or whatever.
Listen to that.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh well, like no, I'm gonna do it, you know. And so I kind of would like to sit there and be like, here's a way of going about it.
Yes.
You're asking for advice, so why don't we see this is point B, so it's still there and it's still the end goal. Here's point A, going on to point B, you know?
Yes. A 1.5.
Anyone who's starting off, don't constrict yourself. It's a very important thing. Just dive in, you'll fail.
Dive in, yeah. It's like when you said your man's not naive, it's like everyone's naive to somebody, right? So you have to just, and that naive optimism as well, you know, the only way to learn is from that naivete, in a way, to think, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then you learn and then you grow from that. And you don't want to, because there's less people probably that are jumping into things, so you don't want to, you know, just put a dampener on that. Because, oh man, there's so much, imagine you came to your books, like, oh, why would you do a book? That's stupid. And then that was it.
And
you know what I mean? And then he's just going to think, oh, well, maybe it is stupid. I shouldn't do that, whatever. And then people, we're always stamping on people's dreams in a way, or ideas, instead of trying to help them. Like, let's say if you thought, oh no, that's a stupid idea to do a book, but now it's like, hang on, it's stupid in a context, right? But then it's like, hold on, it's not really. Let's think about this. Let's go about it this way. Blah blah blah. Instead of like, don't shoot things down. Like, don't be so critical if you're not going to offer solutions.
Exactly, yeah. And there's so many things that I've done that have come from off the cuff decisions. When after I released my first book, I remember like the night of it, I had a session, like a house party in one of the lads' gas. Remember sitting at the back with him having a smoke, and I just turned around to him and I was like, wouldn't it be gas if we just brought out a second one? Like, and he goes, oh yeah, that'd be gas. And it just in my head, I was like, do you know what?
That'd be gas by Eiméid Ó'Briain.
Here we go. I was calling you up at home. But I was like, do you know what? No, let's do it. Let's just go for it. And like a lot of one of the other things that I did notice a lot, and one, I think it was Jeff who was pointed out to me. It was like people have liked or disliked me, and people have criticised and praised, right? But if there's one thing that everyone says, it's you cannot deny the passion. It's like, see it in the eyes or whatever. That's because I'm like so invested. Let's just go. So if you are a young person and you're doubting yourself because you're trying to dive in, just remember that like diving in is a beast, and if you unleash that beast, it's going to be respected.
Yeah,
it's so respected.
100%. No matter, like, that's the thing. Yeah, you might have haters, you might have like critics, whatever, but you can't deny the hustle.
No.
You know what I mean? No one can say he doesn't work hard enough or he doesn't have enough passion or whatever.
And like even there's people that I know that I would say I wouldn't be a fan of their art. Say if I'm running the gig, I wouldn't be a fan of their art, or I might not even be a fan of them, which has happened before. And I'm like, you know what? Nah, the work though. So put it to the side. Yeah, just put it to the side. Here, come and do this gig. Come in, you're a performer. You're looking for a gig or whatever. Like you're impressing people.
Yes.
You're impressing people that you want to impress on all waves. Like the people that I've impressed.
Yes.
And people who have impressed me. And
so just because I'm not feeling it, it's like, well, I'll still give you. I'll still keep you going along the way or whatever. That's brilliant.
Everyone should do that. I think, you know? Because work is work.
Work is work.
You have to respect
as long as
you're
not because I know you've dealt with like I don't know how much problem this is on the scene, but like I know there was something in the past with like homophobia and things of that nature where things got a bit nasty, and it's like I hope you don't have to deal with that too often. I guess
things happen at gigs.
Things happen at gigs, and that's just the nature of the beast.
You can't judge. You can't worry too much about it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There has been a couple of instances where things have gotten a bit rocky, but like,
just roll with it.
Yeah, I just think it. The one thing that gets to me though is like, and I've had it where I've booked gigs with people who are like really dickheads and they say really bad things. And like, you know what? Fair enough, like it was bad. But the one thing that wrecks my head is, you know, those people who are like they come across nice and then they're not really nice anymore, and they're like a one bad egg kind of, you know. And it's hard because I've seen like acts where there's multiple acts for a man, and it's one person that's dragging, and I'm like, but the rest is that's not. You know what I mean? But these are the things that happen.
Yes,
you know, these things that happen. Take on the chin and you move on.
Take on the chin, move on, and just keep moving. As I imagine,
a thing though, like what I said, Dublin is so small, and I think people forget how small Dublin is. And like I think if you're the type of person that goes around causing the issues, it's just known. And it's not, it's a really small minority, I think. I could
100%.
probably count off one hand how many times I had to throw somebody out of a gig.
But again, the work, it's
like to do it last Friday.
Except for last Friday. Before that, well, there was the other. Anyway. No, but you know what I mean? It's, the word gets around. And your reputation, my boss, Killian, had a good line on this. He got in a bit of trouble for it because, anyway, I won't get into that bit, but you have two virginities, like, and one of them is your reputation, and once it's fucked, it's over.
Gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's so hard to once you're known as a bad egg, let's say, or whatever. Like no one's gonna want to deal with you. Your reputation is everything, and how you act towards people that carries across time. And if you don't play the game, everything's a game, right? Because like games are basically rules. Like social etiquette is like we're playing the rule of social etiquette. I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna say please. I'm gonna say thank you because please and thank you are actually so deep. I won't get to it now, but it's just an acknowledgement of a person in a way. Because if you don't say thanks, you're basically it's avoiding the chance to acknowledge their being in a weird way. So it's actually anyway. But the point is that these games of like if you're having a play date, like this is a play date, let's say, if it goes well, we're gonna want to do it again or whatever. And then if it turns out I just kept kicking you in the shin, you're like, I don't want to go. That lad just kicks you in the fucking shin all the time.
It's just it's a way that like people will notice in your work. You know, your reputation does precede you. And it's not even a reputation about being a nice person. I don't know if I have a reputation. I think the reputation of me being a nice person is very new. And beforehand, it wouldn't have been like that. It would have been very controversial.
Yes.
But, like, I done what I needed to do. It was professional. And that's how it works. And, like, I think that there is always time for retribution. But, like, it's just, if you mess around, you mess around. Like,
no, I think...
everyone's friends.
Yes. You know? Yeah, like, just take it easy on your fellow human and be as nice as you can be. But I got to try and wrap this up now. I don't know if you're in a performative mood or if there's anything that you would be interested in performing on the podcast.
Yeah, I can maybe recite something off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's up to yourself. I'll just double check. Everything is all good. And then maybe we can land the plane at this.
Savage. I'll do an City vocab.
Yeah, please!
Right. Deadly.
Oh, mate.
You're buzzing?
Yeah. This is the best thing about doing a podcast.
Right, so I'm talking about inner city vocab. Inner city spoken word for the inner city boys and boards where we bounce metaphor off the mallet without concern and stay confident on our mic without needing to be reassured. See, I heard that I was always different when it came to the rhythm. Infecting people's eardrums with hums of truths and taking the norms of societal systems simply to flip it on its head. I was always told that I was different. But during the stage of lockdown, I felt as though I was locked inside a prison four-wall world of insanity for 670 days. I was caged like an animal, taken from a rainforest and then held a gave in 670 days of woes and hardships, fermenting upon empty pages simply to be shelved for what seemed like an eternity. But during that time, I understood how influential this art form can be, how important these words are to me. You see, I always knew that I was different. Even the young ones in Cabra used to always say, Emmett, there's something fucking mad weird about you. And now that I've grown up, I realise it's the truth, it's talent mixed with youth. And if I dare say so myself, just a little bit of beauty, right? I'm like a 7 out of 10, right? On a good night. With the lighting kind of low and you can't see me face, in that case, I'm a definite 7 out of 10. But when it came to the Irish poetry, the Filiocht, I always knew that I was ever a hand. See, although they told me I'd never make it or release 3 books in 2 years to carry the expectations, and make no mistake about it, I was quick to understand that I had a voice when Shay told me he was shocked and hooked off the knee slappers in me rhyming schemes. I told him absolutely, McCarthy, see, that's the debt of traditional Irish poetry. A phoenix rises from the flames in the form of a 6'2" dub loving, can drinking scorebag from the D7 area. I'm like a blue ghost, that speckled dove of Irish culture. See, I might be ashamed to say that you love it, but once you're on it, the buzz is bleeding, whopping, I'm bouncing analogies off the noggin and leaving your jaw dropping like you were on it, but never forgetting the importance and the message I spit. So well ensured to make sure that the importance and the message I spit hits the heart and head like it was standard terms and conditions. Look, I always knew I had a talent. From a day I stepped upon a stage, I felt my soul begin to take control as a melody infected my brain, a wave of knowledge washed over me in an event I couldn't even explain. It's insane, and that's why every single time I step upon a stage, I have an ability to make a crowd stay hooked on every word I say. I'm talking about inner city spoken word for the inner city boys and boards where we bounce the metaphor off the mallet without concern and stay confident on our mic without needing to be reassured. We can talk about our origin, where it started. When I was flaked out in summer sunshine, letting that voice now find the rhythm. And I was 4 days born in 3, so all of these paper stocks were little, but Bubba Kush, it got me cushy. I grabbed the mic and started spitting, felt like Luke as I was skywalking and used the force to pen the brilliance, but it was different as a kid. No confidence because I had no confidant. Using the pen as a best friend to express the thoughts and wrongs and realising the beauty of life. Well, it's a gift, a lesson that I cherish, a lesson learned from within. I spent some days up in the rain, but I stormed through it into sunshine. Now I unwind with beats, I'm always having a good time and I'm hitting even on the lyric. Never odd when I'm on a beat. Just providing all the vibes to unwind. You taste the juices and the flavours that I'm packing. Bangers that I'm stacking because I'm prolific for a reason. Hard work, I'm not relaxing like Bruce Lee. I'm never chasing. I always welcome in the dragon. Use the flame upon a breath to change the element and write, and it's candid, savage. Always knew that this was different. An Irish spoken word, the scene is mine at this point. They owe me a living. This is Inner City spoken word for Inner City boys and boards.
Yeah! Man, what is going on? It's just to say, because it's so funny, because it just fits so well with the conversation we've been having.
That's what I love about it, though. It's like a very conversation piece.
Yes, but it hits all the themes in a weird kind of cool way, and it was just cool actually because there's little differences between the video, because the video when you do that bit, I'm a 7 and I'm a thing. You do like anyway. Forget about that in the video. But I was wondering, because and then when you say I forget when there's a part where you go, hold on a sec, you take a sip of your can.
Yeah.
But that was obviously so that's a different. So the video was like a little bit. You add more.
So when I do the performance, the line is every time I step upon the stage, the crowd stay hooked on every word I was saying. And then when I performed it, I was like, I was drinking. I was like, let me just have a sip of a pint of Guinness there. So I was like, every time I step upon the stage, as a matter of fact, bang.
That's why it was brilliant.
Yeah.
You're hanging on the word. It was so clear. Oh.
It's like by the time you realise it's there. There was another one that I had, and it was like, I forget it, but it was like talking about how people rely too much on rhyming schemes and rhyming words.
Yes.
And it brings it on this tale where it's like using the word equal, sequel, whatever. And then I always say, like, someone put a crown on me because this is almost, and everyone's expecting regal, but I say something else instead, carrying on, and then come back and say, and for those of you still waiting, this is how you become regal. And it's like, if you get it, you know what I mean? Like, it's just about like, I that's about the conversation, though, you know.
Yes, playing with the art form in a way, and
playing with words. Literature's me, ma.
Jesus Christ. And it's funny because Blue Ghost must have been such a common fucking pill, man. I can't. It even were different ages. And it's like, oh, I fucking remember them lads. Like,
There's someone that I know very well that used to love the Blue Ghost. All right.
shout out to mystery man and woman. But I really appreciate you coming out and doing that. Amazing performance for me, just for me, which is it's a real honor as well. And yeah, I just hope you keep burning, keep fucking charging through this world and seeing what happens with the workshops. And I think you've so much to kind of pass on in terms of your baton of knowledge and inspiration and advice. And I hope that this podcast is another baton that we're passing down.
100%, yeah. And it will be like, that's what it is. Every podcast is.
Exactly, because it's their moment. It's like etched in time, and it's just there. And it's funny because I'm thinking, imagining like 10 years looking at these podcasts, it's gonna be hilarious.
Man, that'd
like,
be class.
like, look at this lad fucking doing this, and then coming back to them. But anyway, I don't know if you've anything else you need to say or.
Everyone that's watching, look out for that gig, Ned Dunn's gig, April 7th.
April 7th.
Juno.
Shout out to Ned Dunn.
And yeah, thanks very much for having me, man. It was really lovely.
No, you're good.
Class.
I'm gonna enjoy listening back to this one and cutting out that toilet break. But we'll catch you in the next one.